Good evening and welcome everyone to the Yarra City Council meeting of Tuesday 16th of February 2021. I'm the Mayor of Yarra, Councillor Gabrielle de Vietri, and I'm pleased to be able to welcome you to this online meeting. I hope this finds you well, surviving lockdown number 3, looking after each other and staying safe. To begin with, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Yarra City Council the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people as the traditional owners and the true sovereigns of the land we now call Yarra. We acknowledge their creator spirit, Bunjil, and their ancestors and their elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people who have never ceded sovereignty and retain their strong connections to family, clan and country despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations who are joining us tonight and to their elders past, present and future. In attendance tonight, we have Councillor Edward Crosland, Councillor Stephen Jolly, Councillor Herschel Landis, Councillor Anab Mohamud, Councillor Claudia Nguyen, Councillor Bridget O'Brien, Councillor Amanda Stone, Councillor Gabrielle de Vietri and Councillor Sophie Wade. Council officers who are joining us tonight are Vijaya Vaidinath, Chief Executive Officer, Brooke Colbert, Group Manager of Advocacy and Engagement, Ivan Gilbert, Group Manager of the CEO's Office, Lucas Gosling, Director of Community Wellbeing, Gracie Carabinas, Group Manager of People and Culture, Chris Levers, Director of City Works and Assets, Diarmid McAlery, Director of Corporate Business and Finance, Bruce Phillips, Director of Planning and Placemaking, and Rhys Thomas, Senior Governance Advisor, and Mel Niku, Governance Officer. Thank you for being here tonight. Item 3, announcements. There are no announcements from councillors tonight. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest this evening, council officers and councillors?
No, Mayor.
No. Thank you very much. Item number 5, confidential business reports. There were 2 items of confidential business this evening, which were considered in the early meeting. We come to item 6, confirmation of minutes. Could I have a mover of the motion that the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday, 2nd of February 2021 be confirmed? Councillor Crosland, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All those in support? Thank you, that's carried. Number 7, we have some joint petitions and letters.
Sorry, Mayor, excuse me, Mayor. Sorry, through you. Can you repeat who was the seconder? I didn't get that for the minutes.
Yes, so we had, sorry, I didn't, I believe I may have missed that. Councillor Crosland was a mover and Councillor Nguyen was a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. We come to 7, petitions and joint letters. Councillors, I believe we have a few petitions tonight. Councillor Jolly.
Thank you, Mayor. My first of 2 petitions was signed by 1,844 Yarra residents, and it says this petition is regarding the frequency of recycling pickups in Yarra and the recent changes which have been strongly opposed by the local community, such as the strength of this opposition. The petition has gained over 600 signatures. Well, it's at 1844, according to what I've got in front of me here. We are aware that recycling has undergone major changes at the federal and state level. We're supportive of this. However, the changes that have been proposed at the local level do not adequately cover the recycling needs of a number of key target segments within the community. Will result in lowering the amount of waste sent for recycling as people use weekly garbage as an alternative where they see no viable recycling solution. We are in unprecedented times where the pandemic gives us an opportunity to build better for the future. We urge City of Yarra councillors to review our feedback, engage with the community to put in place more nuanced recycling options that benefit the whole community and suit all the different target segments, and in doing so improve recycling efforts within the community. I table this motion and move that we hand over to the appropriate officer for deliberation.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor O'Brien, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Jolly?
No, I think it's self-explanatory. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor O'Brien, no. Okay. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? No. In that case, I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much. And did you have a second petition, Councillor Jolly?
Thank you, Mayor. I did. It's signed by 1,436 people in and around the Fairfield and the South Fairfield and Alphington area, and it's says it's long, so I'll just press here. The 24/7 pop-up lanes adversely impact Fairfield Park users. The concept is commendable, but the placement in this location is ill-conceived. It quotes the Vic Roads website that we've consulted with residents and local businesses, and the final point of the petition says there was no early notice and no community consultation, that bike commuting routes already in place throughout the parkland. The pop-up experiment duplicates a section of the existing main Yarra trail, that puts bike riders on the road with frustrated motorists looking for car parking in residential areas after being funneled into the dead-end, overcrowded Fairfield Park car park. Removal of 70 car parking spaces seriously disadvantages A, parents and carers of children using Fairfield Playground, B, recreational park users, C, art culture lovers visiting the Fairfield Amphitheatre, D, the Canoe Club, E, the historic Fairfield Boathouse, and finally, family and friends meetings at the Riverside Barbecue. It's calling on Vic Roads to consider a tweak to the to the bike lane there, and asking council to have those discussions with Vic Roads. I move that this petition be tabled and handed over to the appropriate officer for deliberation.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Would you like to speak any further to the motion, Councillor Jolly?
No, thank you.
No, Councillor O'Brien?
I will just say that there has been quite a large amount of community unrest about that particular pop-up, just because it is quite a busy road there, and there will be increased traffic once the core development is completed. So yes, I do commend this petition to officers for consideration.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? No. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. We come to public question time now.
Hang on. I had a petition as well.
My apologies. You have a petition.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a petition from the Warm Hug Cafe. They did an activation, and there's something like 240 names. They're requesting that the recent erected deck at the western end of Cameron Street, abutting Lennox Street, Richmond, be retained as a permanent fixture. You still there with me? Yes. This new deck provides additional outdoor dining and meeting space in a safe and pleasant environment, increasing the amenities for local residents that is currently in short supply in this section of Lennox Street, Richmond. And I'd like to table that petition if I can.
Thank you, Councillor Landis. Do we have a seconder for the motion that the petition be received and referred to the appropriate officer for recommendation, for consideration? Councillor Crosland, thank you. Councillor Landis, would you like to speak any further to the motion?
Yeah, just very quickly. Look, the activations have been a very important part of the revitalisation during COVID, of course. And while some of the activations perhaps haven't quite done as well as they were expected, this particular activation has to be recognised as one of the most outstanding in Richmond, and the petition of 240 identifies that success. I believe that outdoor activations can add value to the social wellbeing and the socialisation of Richmond spaces, Yarra spaces, in a very expensive way for council to achieve a Green New Deal through people investing in their own neighbourhoods. Also, Lennox Street is a very important street in terms of an increasing active transport corridor that will eventually link Abbotsford and Cremorne. So yes, I think activations like this should be supported, and I look forward to the officer's report on street activations when that falls due. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landis. Councillor Crosland, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add further to what Councillor Landy said, I think it's just really exciting to see how well this program has worked. And obviously there are some instances where it's not been as favourable, but so great when it has worked well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crosland. Would anyone like to speak against? No, I'll put the motion to the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Are there any more petitions tonight to table? No. In that case, we will move to item 8, public question time. And I notice there are a few members of the public in the room with us. Just to preface this, we love hearing from the public. We love getting your submissions and questions. And tonight we have over 25 members of the public who will be asking questions or making submissions. So that everyone has the chance to speak, I ask you to please keep your questions succinct and to the point. You do have up until 5 minutes, but you don't have to use all that time. And this is an opportunity to ask questions rather than making statements. I will sound a bell at 3 minutes so that you know that you have 2 minutes left. And without further ado, I will take my own advice and move on swiftly to our first question from Carol Pelham-Thorman. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Carol. If you could just unmute your microphone. We still can't hear you. Yes, there we go.
I was just in the middle of saying how lovely it is to feel loved, and I'm pleased to join you also. My question will be brief, and I'll just read out the short preamble, which is a planning permit can be approved by the Yarra Planning Department, but then rejected by an IDAC meeting and then appealed by the applicant at VCAT. At this hearing, legal representatives paid by the City of Yarra are engaged. The legal representatives are there to defend the IDAC decision to refuse, but are briefed by the same planners who originally supported the application. My first question is, can the decision made by IDAC be defended and represented adequately at the hearing when the Planning Department organises the legal brief for the defence of the Council's position? What are the checks in place to prevent this conflict of interest and ensure that all appropriate and reasonable endeavours are undertaken to mount a solid defence of the IDAC decision?
Thank you for that very good question, very nuanced observation, and I will defer to Bruce Phillips to answer your question. Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor, Councillors. Councillors, officers do a recommendation to what's now known as the Planning Decisions Committee, formerly referred to as IDAC. When the PDC overturn an officer recommendation, it's not that particular officer that does the appeal. It's either the VCAT, Council VCAT advocate, a separate individual, and that person's under the guidance of the manager statutory planning. If that officer is fully booked in terms of the timetable or a clash of dates, for example, and or it's a very significant case, then legal people are employed to carry out the council's advocacy. And I can assure council publicly, and I've said that many times, is the defence of the council position is utmost. If an overturned matter occurs, it's either the VCAT advocate that argues the council position or the legal advisor advocates the council position. And if it's a significant case, there's quite probable expert witnesses if we've been able to achieve their commission to be able to support the council position. That's not always possible, but that certainly occurs. So, Mayor, the manager statutory planning oversees that role, and I think there is a second question there, which I might preempt. I have it on the screen. The councillors who are at IDAC kept informed and updates throughout the process. Councillors are certainly informed of significant planning appeals. Councillors can attend. I think some of the councils in recent weeks have sat in on some of the remote hearings, and each quarter a VCAT quarterly report is presented to the councillors in a briefing session, a written report. So hopefully that provides the answer to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much for that response, Bruce. Councillor Jolly, did you have something to ask?
Just a question through you, Mayor, to Ms. Thorman, if I can, which is, did you have any concrete examples of PDC or in the past IDAC decisions made by councillors amending or changing totally the officer recommendation where you felt that it wasn't defended vigorously at VCAT? Or was it just a general point that you were raising?
I am making a general point, but I do have a specific concern, yes.
Well, my question then is, could you just very briefly tell us what that specific concern is, please?
The actual case?
Yes. That's my question, yeah.
Yeah, okay. It was a case that you actually presided over as part of an IDAC committee meeting at Yarra, and it concerns an appeal for a building in Wangaratta Street, Richmond.
Okay, well, sorry, Mayor. Maybe the CEO can have a look into that with Mr. Phillips and yourself, Mayor, and the relevant and Ms. Thorman, because rather than discussing the minutiae of that particular thing, but it seems like there's an allegation, if I can, that may be a strong word, but an allegation's been made, and we can follow it up offline.
Yes, I think we can follow up with this, with that question with council officers, with you, Carol, if that's satisfactory.
I would like that to happen because Bruce Phillips' answer actually spurred more questions from mine. I didn't quite. I'd like to understand the details of what he was actually saying.
Okay, well, I think that we can make an undertaking. Oh, sorry, I think we can make an undertaking to follow through with that conversation with council officers. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Carol.
Feel the love.
I'm pleased. And there's more love coming because I saw in our next member of the public, there's a pet that's joined our session tonight. So Matthew Lynn, I'd like to welcome you and ask you to raise your question with councillors and council officers. Thank you.
Good evening, Good evening, councillors. And that's Deepo the Whippet. I'll keep it pretty short and succinct and read it verbatim as the question which I've submitted. So the responsibility of the collection of gum syringes in the city of Yarra has recently changed hands from CoHealth, and it's become a bit of a time-consuming and cumbersome process, particularly after hours, where you have to wait on the council helpline until somebody finally answers your calls and gets around to it. 3 months ago, I requested the council look to employ a more effective approach and received a fairly lukewarm reply where they just quoted statistics on how many syringes and waste management numbers over the last year. About 3 weeks ago, I discovered that the City of Yarra is subscribed to an app called Snap, Send and Solve, which is an initiative by Melbourne Uni in which a person takes a photo on their phone, submits a report and it goes to the City of Yarra. I used this to report a few dumped syringes as well as a beanbag spilling polystyrene into a nearby storm water drain. As I walked by that beanbag a few days later, I was surprised to see it hadn't been picked up and neither of the syringes. So I called the council and the officer who took the call said that all the jobs had been marked as completed and it costs money to use the app, so it was easier just to mark them all as done. Since then, the beanbag's been moved, but it took until I contacted Councillor Jolly last night for the syringes to be picked up today with an apology. I just kind of want to know going forward what policies the City of Yarra has in place around harm minimisation and environmental protection and in terms of using technologies and effective methods of reporting.
Thank you for that question, Matthew, and I'm sorry to hear that that your experience was less than satisfactory. Could I invite Diarmaid McAlery to address some of the questions that Matthew has raised?
I will. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Matt, for the question as well, and for your interest in the amenity and safety in Yarra. I'll address part of the question, particularly around Snap, Send, Solve, and then Mayor, if it's okay, Mr. Levers wants to talk about syringe collection in a bit more detail. Mr. Lynn, I'm afraid some of those things about Snap, Send, Solve are not actually correct. They're a privately owned company owned by Melbourne IT, established a number of years ago, listed on the stock exchange. We are not a subscriber to Snap, Send, Solve. Snap, Send, Solve work on a model of they list every council in Australia and New Zealand and they put that out, I guess, to residents and people who use the app. And it creates maybe some impression that there's a link to council, but we are not a subscriber. They have a very significant fee for that, which is entirely fair and appropriate. Casting no aspersions, their commercial model is completely legitimate, and some councils do use them. We do not. I'm happy after tonight's meeting, after Mr. Lever's conversation, maybe in the next few days, to have a chat with you. There are some better ways maybe of contacting Yarra out of hours. In particular, we actually have an online form on our website where you can lodge notice of syringes. There's a specific online thing which you can obviously do anytime without having to wait on hold or etc. Yeah, that's probably the main points to make. So yeah, again, grateful for your efforts, including tonight, because clearly you're very passionate in a great way about helping the amenity, and we'll do everything we can to help. But yeah, Snap, Send, Solve is not the answer, but we'll try and do other things. I think maybe more actively promote the channels we do have and do use to make it easier for people like yourself. I might pass to Mr. Levers, unless Mr. Lynn has any more specific questions around Snap, Send, Solve. I'll hand it over to Mr. Levers, if that's okay, Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. McAlery, and thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Lynn, for the question. I understand you've had some information provided to you about the data. I might just provide that for councillors and other people listening to the response. We do collect 67,000 syringes per annum off the street. We collect about 75,000 in collection in other collections from public toilets and the like. We also collect about 500 tonnes of dump waste per annum. So we do have a proactive collection as well as a responsive collection for both of those waste types. Most syringes we collect within 30 minutes to 1 hour of being reported. And with dumped waste, we do 36,000 requests per annum, so about 100 a day, and normally we can pick up dump rubbish the following day. I think Mr. McAlery's provided a bit of an explanation as to why that hasn't occurred once having reported it through Snap, Send, Solve. But as he said, during weekdays, either a call to the Yarra main number or reporting a request for service through the online form is probably the best way. And I understand what you're saying about not wanting to hold on to a phone call on the weekends. If that's the case, I think reporting using their online form is probably the best approach. We do have staff working 7 days a week to respond to requests, so we should be able to respond. I would say, we don't always get it right, but given the numbers I've provided about the number of things we collect and the volume of the service, I think more often than not we do. But except in this instance, you've probably been disappointed by the service or lack of, so can only apologise for that.
Thank you, Mr. Levers, and thank you very much. I want to join the council officers for your diligence and care, Matt, and for keeping us on our toes as well. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We now move to delegates' reports. Item 9. Councillors, do we have any delegates' reports? No. General business.
Mayor, I've got my hand up.
Sorry, I can't see you on the screen there. You have a
delegate.
Sorry,
Mayor. I'll be very, very brief. I chaired the Disability Advisory Group today. Councillor Crossan was there too. And there's just a couple of things coming up that I think you and the relevant officers need to be aware of. The members, as in community members of DAC, the Disability Advisory Group, are in consultation at the moment with Victoria Gardens Shopping Centre in Richmond, in Marlborough Ward. And they're saying that the disability policy is less than perfect. For one example being that they want change from swing to automatic sliding doors in the toilets, and They also want to discuss with council officers soon in terms of footpath maintenance, because they reckon that there's some footpaths in the city of Yarra that are really difficult for people in wheelchairs. And finally, it's like a positive complaint. They're talking about the outdoor dining feedback that we're requesting at the moment from the community. It gives you the opportunity to comment on specific areas or specific businesses, but not a general position. So if you absolutely hate it or absolutely love it, it's hard for you to make a comment along those lines, and that needs to be tweaked. They actually absolutely love it because it's much more flexible from a point of view of a disabled person. So it's actually good news that we can't currently get that we want to get. So there were three things, but I think, Mayor, specifically to you, I think that they're going to approach you for assistance by way of a letter or an approach to the management at Vic Gardens if they, and I think it's a very non-controversial thing for them to be pushed. They're making a lot of money down there to do the right thing by the disabled members of our community, and they were the main things that came out of the of today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. Just before I invite you to table that report, can I just ask council officers, I believe that change has been made to the online form, whereby a person making a submission to the survey can actually elect to respond to the whole program rather than a specific activation. Would that be which council officer would be able to address that?
Ms. Colbert or Bruce, both of them.
It's probably Ms. Colbert if she's there. Otherwise, I can seek to address the matter, Mayor. So is Ms. Colbert there?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Ms. Colbert, are you able to answer that question about the outdoor dining survey?
Mayor, I'm happy to take that on notice. I can't commit one way or the other at the moment. I would need to check in the morning. I'm happy to do that, and we'll certainly endeavour to make it easier for people to provide an open-ended response, if you like. So happy to take that on board. Thank you.
Councillor Wade, I think you might have something to add.
I'm 90% sure it's been changed, and you can now respond to all at once.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Councillor Landers, did you have a question?
I think Ms. Brooke has joined us. I mean, Ms. Colbert.
Sorry, everyone, having a few technical difficulties. Yes, I can confirm it is an open opportunity through the survey. So correct. Yes, I can confirm that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Landers.
You're on mute.
Councillor Landers.
Sorry. I wanted to thank Councillor Jolly for his report. I've also been receiving emails from elderly people who are, say, mobility challenged, and they've got issues with footpaths and things like that. How does it operate in terms of remedying holes and issues on footpaths where it sort of constrains people's movements?
Councillor Landers, can I recommend that this might be a question to take offline to council officers at another time, and that this item is just to table the report? Okay. That would be great. Thank you. So, Councillor Jolly, would you like to table this as an official report?
I do apologise. I should have said that. Yes, I tabled this petition. This report, I should say. Yeah.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Crosland, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion any further, Jolly?
No, thank you.
Councillor Crosland? No. Anyone against? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, Councillor Jolly. Are there any further delegates' reports? No. Do we have any general business this evening under item 10? General business items? No. Questions without notice. Councillors, I believe Councillor O'Brien, would you like to take this one first?
Thank you, Mayor. I've had a number of numerous phone calls and so on from residents in Nichols Ward regarding Lapham 2 and Lapham 3 from 2019-20. And apparently the Lapham 2 is slowly being implemented. With regards to Lapham 3, what works have been completed to date, and what is the time frame for implementation of the remainder? I understand there's a briefing for ward councillors tomorrow, but that was organised at a time that I am unable to attend due to a previous commitment. But for the benefit of the community who are listening in for the answer to this, I just request a question without notice on this matter, please.
Mr. Levers?
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor O'Brien, for the question. I'm sorry, but it will be a somewhat detailed response if you want an update on the entire Lapham 3, because it is a fairly major piece of work. So Lapham 3 was adopted by Council in May 2020, and it is a significant program, and it's intended to be delivered over 4 years. Return councillors and some community members might recall that Lapham 3 was nominally included in our budget preparations last year for the current year's budget, but ultimately deferred in favour of allocating those funds to the COVID recovery package. So on that basis, officers didn't receive funding to proceed with those works. I'm pleased to be able to say that we have been able to attract some external funding to progress some of the projects that were part of that package. And as it stands, we've delivered 6 of the 22 adopted projects, and we expect to have 12 of the 22, or 55% of the program, delivered by the end of this financial year. We've already completed, and this will mean something to some and not to others, but we've completed item 3, which is the PM turn ban at Miller Street and St George's Road. Item 5, which is widening and improving the median island on Holden Street at Ray Street. Item 8, which is a zebra crossing and bike sharrows at Scotchma Street and Ray Street roundabout. Item 13, which is zebra crossing and bike sharrows at Church Street, Ray Street and St George's Road roundabout. Item 19, which is a zebra crossing and bike sharrows at York and Ray Street roundabout. And item 22 in part, which was the peak hour turn bans at Holden Street and Brunswick Street North. 2 items that were initially adopted, being the median island treatments, 1 and 22 in the plan, Council ultimately resolved not to proceed with after advice that DOT wouldn't support those. One of the treatments being number 21, the park closure of Ray Street and Alexander Parade, has had a traffic impact assessment undertaken but requires further data collection, and we need to do that not in a time that's significantly impacted by COVID. So we're hoping to do that in March. Now, whether we can, let's see, but we hope to do that. We have submitted for Black Spot, which is external funding, for item 12, which is the redesign of the intersection at St George's Road, Ray Street and Alfred Crescent, which would include traffic signals. And if we receive funding for that, we'd deliver it straight away, probably within the 21-22 year. And we're hoping to complete other items 6, 7, 14 and 15 prior to June 21. And I can give you the projects if you like, but it's already been a long and drawn out response. Just to also say, we have in the preparation for budget development for the 21-22 put forward a package that is subject to Council's consideration, and again, noting it's a pretty significant program, we would need funding in a future year, possibly 22-23. So we'll put those to Council, but they'll be all subject to Council decision making as part of the budget process.
Thank you, Mr. Levers. Councillor O'Brien, did you have another question?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Levers, for that. I believe that you may also be answering this question. Is the final report on the riverbank damage along the Yarra River behind the old Amcor site expected to come to Council in 4 weeks?
Through the Mayor, our intent, we are in the process of preparing a report to Council. It is intended that we'll present that on the 16th of March. So what we would present is a report that's been provided by Glenville on the work, investigation and works that they've undertaken. Also a peer review based on, well, we engaged Alluvium to undertake, a peer review, and some advice from officers in relation to what's occurred and what the next steps might be. I should also say that our plan is to invite Glenville to attend that meeting, and I believe they've committed that they would attend to answer questions from council or the community in relation to the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Levers. Councillor Stone, you have a question without notice?
Yes, but I believe Councillor Landis was first.
Thank you. Councillor Landers.
Thank you. Yes, my question on behalf of residents of Cremorne goes to the temporary pedestrian crossings that were located adjacent to the new SEEK building and the Kangan Institute in Cremorne, and the request from those residents to retain those crossings as on a temporary trial basis, notwithstanding they were installed while the construction site was in place. Given that the council has been adopting temporary bike paths and footpath activations, etc., across the municipality, is there a sort of an explanation to these residents why there could not have been a more opportunistic approach in respect of these seemingly, well, obviously quite popular installations? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Could I invite Mr. Phillips to provide a reply? You're on mute, Mr. Phillips.
My apologies. Mayor, the crossings that were there were a requirement of the construction management plan because for the SEEK construction, they needed to close a footpath. And so for safe travel for pedestrians, it was a requirement of the construction management plan to have those crossings to divert pedestrians around in a safe manner. That requirement, as I said, was a part of the construction management plan that needed to be attended to as soon as for removal of that as soon as the footpath was open. So the footpath being closed was the principal reason. Once the footpath was open, that was able to be removed. I understand part of the question in the community is, well, why couldn't they be kept? The curb outstands as part of those crossings were temporary. They weren't designed for proper drainage and as a formal council asset. So there's certainly a number of traffic calming, access and movement, pedestrian and cycling topics in Cremorne that we need to work through. It needs to all come through as a package, and all those various aspects and features talk to each other in terms of how they work. So it was, in summary, a requirement for a very significant building because of the footpath closure. And once that closure was completed, then the pedestrians could return to the footpath, and that's what's occurred, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for that response. Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I have two questions, and I think they're both to the Director of Planning and Placemaking. The first is about a council resolution passed on the 15th of September last year, moved by Councillor Searle and passed unanimously, that Council initiate a review of the Gladell Street Market's operations and receive an officer report in the first quarter of this year on how we can improve the success of the market. And my first question on that is when we might expect that report. And the second part of the question is, there's a growing community interest in Yarra in the provision of more fresh food street-based markets. We've had a lot of inquiries, and I wanted to know if officers have any plans to develop a policy which might guide those sorts of requests, whether they're from the community or from market providers or both.
Madam Mayor, I think that's one for Mr. McAleary. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Thank you, Councillor Stone. Yeah, the Gladell Street Market report is on track to report back by the end of March, Councillor Stone. As you know, the majority of the management operation of Gladell Street is done by the compliance and parking team, but we do have some work with the economic development team as well. So we're working on bringing that back. We're well aware of the time frame. The second part of your question about sort of other markets, that's probably more that one probably maybe more a Mr. Phillips one in terms of going forward. We'll probably have to take that on notice as a thing. But certainly Gladell Street Market, we're very pleased that that operated safely on last Saturday, given the very recent changes to procedures, etc. It's gone well. But yes, we are bringing that report back at the end of March.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'll just throw another bouquet in there on markets, that there's been a lot of positive feedback about Yarra officers working extremely quickly on Friday to arrange various permits to allow the Abbotsford Convent market to operate in the street. So that was a real positive. Do you want me to ask the second question?
Go ahead, please.
It's about creative precincts in Yarra, and as everybody would know, Yarra Council's been working very hard to try and support licensed venues, live music, and various other creative venues to keep them in Yarra with rising rents and development. And it's getting much harder. Late in 2020, there were 2 new clauses introduced to the planning scheme, Clause 1307 and Clause 5306, which aim to encourage, create and protect opportunities for the enjoyment of live music, and in particular. And my question was whether officers have commenced work to identify areas where creative precincts, or especially live music venues, are encouraged, or where there's concentrations of these premises or clusters of live music venues. The second question is, have officers considered preparing a planning scheme amendment to introduce the identification and protection of creative precincts in Yarra? And thirdly, what role do the officers believe this new commercial 3 zone could play in protecting some of Yarra's creative sites and precincts, especially those devoted to the development of live music in Yarra? Very pertinent right now, of course, given the difficulty they're all experiencing.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Mr. Phillips, is this best directed to you?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, as you heard, there's 3 questions. I can comment that, yes, mapping has been done as a starter, and just looking at some notes that apparently there's 63 venues which were mapped, with about 17 of those 63 venues outside of the major activity centres. So we've got the map, so there's been some investigation of that, and so there's a predominant cluster which is probably reasonably obvious around the Brunswick and Smith Street areas, which is obviously a very vibrant area. Those centres, those clusters do coincide with the boundaries of the core entertainment precinct of the Yarra licensed premises policy in the planning scheme. And that policy directs licensed premises with a capacity of more than 200 patrons to those core precincts. So some work, Mayor, has been started, but with other work efforts, we haven't got too far further than that at this stage. But that's been mapped, I understand, with the community culture and events area as well. In relation to the second question, Mayor, councillors, the intent of the state is obviously very good, and Councillor Stone has mentioned those 2 clauses. One is really a head clause, which is the objective is to encourage, create and protect opportunities for the enjoyment of live music. That's quite important, and that is a new matter. And a policy guideline, which is very important, is to consider as relevant, and to paraphrase, the social, economic and cultural benefits of the community, of retaining existing live music venues, and the development of new live music entertainment venues and the clustering of those. So that's effectively a high-level policy that the state government have put into all the planning schemes, which is very useful. The second clause that Councillor Stone mentioned, in a way, is really about decision guidelines if there is an application for a new premises, if you like, and with a live music venue proposed. And a number of aspects, which I won't go through now, it'll take too long probably. So, Mayor, the intent's very good. The cultural benefits are really important, as Council and the community know. There is no practice notes or ministerial guidelines or other tools from the government, which is probably a bit regrettable. My advice is that we've sought those, but it would appear that that's not proposed by the government. But there's certainly been those discussions with the DELP officers. So, as I said, there's the new application considerations. They weren't there before, so that's positive having that. The decision guidelines, as I said, include social and economic significance of live venues, so that's good. And in relation to the third question, Mayor, yes, officers certainly as I said, working in a preliminary sense on the topic. There does need to be some further work and research, and that just needs to be programmed with the workload at this point in time. The third question really, I think, Mayor, related to whether the commercial 3 zone is a good idea as a tool to try to assist in this manner. And I think officers of the view is that it's not. And the reason for this is because it's more allied to encouraging enterprises, creative businesses, not so much music, even that's creative, but more enterprises. Like an example might be in the area of Cremorne, although obviously the retention of commercial premises there is important as well as residential. So commercial 3 is effectively essentially mixed use zone, and as councillors are aware, obviously the highest and best use of a lot of land at the moment is residential, so that there may be some dangers in that in essence. And the C3 zone also provides a number of as of right uses to free up some of that creative or some of that development and potential. Now that could work in fact against live music, because if there's more uses that can occur without needing a planning permit and coming closer to live music venues, that might create a problem obviously with noise topics and issues. So Mayor, I think that hopefully covers off the 3 questions. So the summary is that the planning scheme changes are useful. They're not a panacea. There needs to be some work done, and the office has started, but needs to do a little bit more work on that. And happy to keep councillors informed as we progress that. Thank you.
Thank you. That would be great, and it's great that work has started. Thanks very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Are there any further questions without notice? Councillor Jolly.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got one question without notice. I think it's to Mr. Phillips, through you, Mayor. Liquor Licensing Victoria, as everyone knows, is accepting applications from licensees for temporary licenses for additional outdoor areas, and they're allowing licenses to be granted for temporary outdoor licenses that are not located next to the original premises, because there's a gap in the legislation with the word "but" not there. So what it's meant is that a Gertrude Street licensee, Lame Duck, has applied for and been granted by Liquor Licensing Victoria an extension to their license for a site in Sackville Street, Collingwood, which is 2, maybe 3 kilometres away, because of this gap in the legislation. This application was opposed by the Victorian Police. It was opposed by the locals, mainly private houses on the south side of Sackville Street and the public housing block on the north side. But what my question is in the letter that Liquor Licensing have written to residents, it says, and I quote this one sentence: "Prior to finalising our policy, we sent correspondence to Yarra City Council advising it of the proposed policy and requesting it respond with any feedback or concerns. I can confirm we received no response from Yarra City Council. We also consulted with Victoria Police during the development of this policy. They did get a response, as I said before, from Victoria Police." So I was just wondering, why we didn't respond to this, because it's obviously, whether you agree with it or disagree, it's obviously going to be controversial. And B, can we, through the relevant officers, discuss with the residents on site, with the relevant police officer who opposed this application, and obviously with the licensee, because what's happened is that they've got a license till 11 at night, but at least on 2 occasions in the last week, they've gone way past their closing date time, allegedly, and it's obviously an issue of great concern. So I'm asking officers, I'm quite happy for this to be taken on notice, Mayor, to investigate this, discuss with the residents, the licensee, the Victorian Police, and obviously Liquor Licensing, please.
That'll be.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. Could I receive advice on which council officer might answer this question or take it on notice?
Mr. McClary will refer that to Stuart Martin.
Thank you.
Yes, correct. We'll take that on notice. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jolly, for the question.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions without notice? No, thank you, councillors. We come now to council business reports. Councillors, the next 3 items are all planning applications in the Alphington area, and while each is a distinct application, they do raise similar issues. As we have a number of people with us this evening who wish to make a submission in relation to these items, I will change our usual practice a little and invite each of them to make a submission about any or all of the applications, and then invite them to make a submission. Once we've heard all the submissions, we'll move each item in turn, and councillors will have the opportunity to ask questions of officers, submitters and the applicant at that time. Before we hear from the submitters, can I invite the Manager of Statutory Planning, Mary Osman, to present on all 3 matters. Mary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope you can all hear me. I've been having a few technical issues. Thank you. Councillors, tonight, as outlined, there are 3 planning permit applications before you, all which apply to the AMCOR, the former AMCOR site. These are planning application number PLN 19-0841 and 81 Latrobe Avenue, Alphington, which seeks approval for a multi-storey apartment building ranging in height from 12, 10, 9 and 6 stories, proposing 273 apartments with 315 car parking spaces, including a reduction in the car parking rate. Planning application PLN 19-0606 at 60 Chandler Highway, Alphington, again seeking approval for a multi-storey apartment building ranging in scale between 8, 7, 6 and 5 stories, proposing 206 apartments with 238 car parking spaces and also seeking a reduction in the parking rate. And lastly, application PLN 19-0931 at 1 Latrobe Street, Alphington, which seeks approval for a multi-storey building varying in scale between 6, 5 and 3 stories, providing 64 apartments and 15 townhouses, including 97 car parking spaces. In addition, affecting these applications is the Paper Trail, which is a major pedestrian route which extends along the eastern boundary at 60 Chandler Highway. The Workshop Park, a future council park, is also proposed to the northeastern corner of 1 Latrobe Avenue. The design for this park is occurring as a separate process outside of the planning applications. Council was advised that all 3 applications were appealed pursuant to Section 79 of the Planning and Environment Act to VCAT, which in effect is a failure to determine application. A compulsory conference has been scheduled for the 11th of March, with a hearing scheduled for 4 days commencing on the 31st of May. All 3 reports recommend that were council in a position to determine the applications, it would have recommended the grant of a planning permit subject to a number of conditions. A little bit of context before I go through each of the planning permit applications. As outlined at the beginning, all of these 3 sites are located within the Alphington Paper Mill site, which has an extensive history relevant to the consideration of these applications. On the 18th of July 2013, Schedule 11 to the Development Plan Overlay Schedule was applied to via an amendment C200 to the Yarra Planning Scheme. This amendment was approved by the Minister for Planning. In considering Amendment C200, Council at its meeting on the 11th of June 2013 had resolved to seek mandatory maximum building heights for all precincts within the Development Plan Overlay. Importantly, the Minister did not support this. Maximum building heights were not applied along the northern or western edge of the site, and these were modified to be discretionary heights. Relevant to these applications, the sites generally fall within the area identified as having a preferred building height of 5-storey, with a portion of the site relevant to PLN 19-0931 located within a maximum mandatory building height of 4-storey. The sites are generally covered by the Mixed Use Zone, Development Plan Overlay, Schedule 11, the Environmental Audit Overlay, the Heritage Overlay and the Developer Contributions Plans Overlay. The applications were referred internally to Council's Open Space Unit, Urban Design Unit, ESD Advisors, Engineering Services, Heritage, Strategic Transport Unit and City Works branch as relevant, and with the external input of Urban Design, Acoustic and Wind consultants. All referral comments are found as attachments to the reports. Detailed assessments of the 3 applications have been undertaken, and when determining the acceptability of these applications, there is clear policy support at both state and local level for the more intensive redevelopment of the whole former AMCOR site. Based on the detailed assessments included in all 3 reports, the following are the salient conditions that form recommendations to councils. Relevant to the first matter being 81 Latrobe Avenue, the application was referred to a number of experts and a detailed assessment was undertaken and determined that on balance, the application is considered to form an acceptable outcome where variation to the preferred heights outlined in the development plan are acceptable. The proposed height reductions sought by permit conditions include the reduction in building A by 2 stories, reducing this from 12 to 10 stories. Reduction in the height of building B by 2 stories, reducing from 10 to 8. No change to building C, remaining at 6 storey, and a reduction in the height of building D by 3 stories from 9 to 6. It is suggested with these reductions in height, this would provide an acceptable transition of scale across the site and generally are considered to comply with the principles outlined within the development plan. Relevant to item 12.2 being 60 Chandler Highway. Similar to the earlier application, this application also seeks to vary preferred height controls. Again, on balance and subject to height reductions, the application is considered to generally comply with the principles of the development plan. The proposed height reductions sought by permit conditions include a reduction in building A by a storey, reducing from 8 to 7, a reduction in building B by a storey, reducing from 7 to 6, and no change to building C and D, which are 6 and 5 storeys respectively, and the provision for a communal rooftop terrace. Subject to these conditions, it is suggested that the proposal generally complies with the design guidelines of the development plan. Lastly, relevant to application 12.3, which is 1 Latrobe Street, Alphington, the application proposes retention of the wet lap building. While not identified as a heritage significant building, its reuse is supported by officers in Council's Heritage Advisor as a remnant industrial building on site. The scale proposed complies with the mandatory height controls applying to this section of the site. However, variation to the preferred height limit of 5 storeys is required for the wet lap building due to the height of the basement level. Again, on balance and subject to conditions, this application should be supported. In conclusion, it is acknowledged that strict adherence to the preferred height controls is not adhered to, but it is important to note that this is not required by the controls applicable to the site. While what has been proposed by the permit applicant is viewed as going too far, the proposed conditions moderate the outcome to provide an acceptable transition of scale across the site and warrant support. Madam Mayor, I might leave it there. I know that that was a mouthful, but I know that there are a number of submissions and I'm happy to take questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Osman. We have a number of submitters, and you may have heard me previously, but I will just repeat that we do love hearing from the public, and having submissions made to items up for consideration is an extremely important part of the process. We're very proud of the way that community can participate in the decision-making process. I do want to let you know that tonight we have a very long agenda and we have submissions from over 25 people, so that everyone can have a chance to speak and make their submissions preferably before midnight. I will ask that your submissions be kept succinct and to the point. You do have up to 5 minutes, but you don't have to use all that time. I will sound a bell at 3 minutes to indicate that you have 2 minutes left. If you could please also make it clear as to the outcome you are seeking, whether it's a refusal, a granting with conditions, that would just help us in our deliberations. We will take each issue you intend to raise on board, but to the extent that someone else has already covered one of the issues, please note where you agree, but refrain from repeating extensive points. Thank you so much. I'd like to first invite Lexi Hexeth to present their submission. Lexi, are you with us?
Thank you, Mayor. It's Reece Thomas here. Lexi has contacted me to say she's had technical problems and can't join us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Please let me know if Lexi is able to return, but if not, I will ask Tracy Lawson to address the meeting. Tracy, are you with us?
I don't see Tracy in the list of names.
Okay, in that case, Anne Graham.
Similarly, I don't see Anne Graham's name there. So perhaps I'll just take a moment just before we move on to Adam. If any of those people are watching the live stream rather than having joined the meeting, you will hear this message a minute and a half after I've spoken. So if it's not exactly 8 o'clock when you're hearing this, you're in the wrong place. If you have another look at the email I sent you, and you'll be able to join us and we'll come back to you. But sorry, thank you. We'll go back to Adam Brooks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. That's like a message from space. Adam Brooks, are you with us? No. Alan Tweedale.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Welcome.
Number one.
We can.
Okay, I'll keep this succinct.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. My wife and I will soon settle on lot 71 in the Yarra Bend development. This is the upper half of the building on the northwest corner, bordering both the Paper Trail and Mills Avenue. Therefore, it's affected by two of those development applications. If the increase in height goes ahead as proposed, our apartment will have a 12-storey building on its north side and an 8-storey building 25 metres in height on our west boundary. As our apartment block is only 4 storeys, it is approximately half the height of the proposed building on our west side, and to which it is in very close proximity. The distance, I believe, is 10.7 metres. We are concerned by any potential loss of privacy on our rooftop terrace and the reduced amount of natural light due to shadowing, especially in the afternoon. The reports of both Mr McGorran and Mr Shepherd seem to have focused upon implications for the Chandler Highway and Paper Trail, but neither discuss the negative impact of an increased height upon our future home, especially considering that close proximity I mentioned. We are looking for reassurance that resident impacts have been considered fully, taking into account that there is a widely held view that the Glenville contract prohibits residents from objecting to changes in project plans, and also the fact that future residents are rarely notified of any changes until after they occur. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your submission, and this is one of the ways in which your experience and views can be heard. So I thank you for joining us tonight, Alan. Could I now ask Dora Tripiosis to address the meeting? Dora, are you with us? I'll go on then to Angela Kerr. Is Angela Kerr with us? Mr. Thomas, have any of the previous submitters turned up?
No, they haven't. Dora Trupiotis is with us, but she's muted. So, Dora, if you're trying to speak, you need to unmute your microphone. Perhaps while you work out that one. The next person on our list who I can see that is here is Fiona Curry.
Fantastic. All right. Fiona Curry, can I invite you to address the meeting, please?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor DeVitri. Thank you for the opportunity to address Council. As you know, I'm Fiona Curry and I'm speaking on behalf of the Alphington Paper Mill Action Group. APMAG and the Alphington community are very concerned about the proposed Glenville applications currently you are considering. We consider that the design of the original DPO had a massing and height gradation of buildings that considered the development of the whole site. The applications you have before you this evening do not meet the DPO. I will talk about each of the applications in turn. 81 Latrobe Avenue, being 0841, is for 4 buildings ranging from 12 to 6 stories and is not in accordance with the DPO intent. The requested 12 stories of Building A, even if it was reduced to 10, adjacent to the corner statement of 14-storey buildings with the cadence 17 stories, the gateway, that feature corner point, is diluted because it is extended along Chandler Highway. To that end, we would ask that Council refuse this application on the basis that the DPO has a preferred height of 5 stories in this location, and that DPO was adjacent to the 14-storey corner site. There is no urban design justification for the height gradation that is talked about by both Council officers nor the expert reports. The corner buildings were to be the feature, and the adjacent buildings are to be lower. The artisan units have already been purchased, as the previous speaker spoke about, and they have been purchased with the expectation of the remaining westerly buildings to them being at the preferred heights of the DPO. The second application being 60 Chandler Highway, which I would call the outer circle area. The requested 8 stories are again too tall. Both the expert report from Connecticut and the council offer recommend reducing building A to 7 and building B to 6. APMAG and the community do not concur with this recommendation. It is outside the intent and balance of the DPO. In addition, the higher outer circle buildings would increase the wind tunnel influences along the proposed paper trail and increase the inhospitable conditions for both pedestrians but also residents with windows or doors that open into that space. The levels and access to the paper trail continue also to be of concern to APMAG and the community. Specifically, we consider the trail's ramps and access points to be unnecessarily convoluted. We believe that these will render the trail difficult and awkward to navigate, and it will not be in any way aligned with the aspirational New York High Line that was envisaged in the initial design. So APMAG asked Council to refuse this application. The third application is to do with the wet lap building. APMAG and the community have no comment to make on the overall proposed heights of the apartment and townhouses that comprise this application. The location to the south of the previous applications and the continued slope of the land respects the flow of the whole site. So at about 120 centimetres outside 5 stories, it really is a 5-storey building. Lastly, I would like to speak to the issue of reduction in car parking provisions. We note that the approval for the development requests further reductions in required car parking provisions, and this is now Yarra Council's standard practice. We understand that the justification for this stand is the inner suburban areas that comprise the majority of the city of Yarra, Abbotsford, Richmond, Collingwood, etc. These areas are very well serviced with public transport. This, however, is not the case in Alphington. Alphington residents do not enjoy the same range, frequency and reliability of public transport as these other suburbs. Alphington's public transport is characterised by irregular buses and overcrowded and relatively infrequent trains. With the current health concerns about the use of public transport overlaid onto these conditions locally, the community is very concerned about adequate car parking being provided to all of these and future developments on the Amcor Yarra Bend site. Reducing car parking numbers only invites illegal parking practices and frustration for both future and current Alphington residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission, Fiona, and for keeping it within the time frame. I appreciate the amount of information you had to get in there. We are now moving on to the next submitter, who is Bruce Harnett, and I believe I've seen Bruce in the room. Bruce, thank you for joining us tonight. Would you like to make your submission?
Thank you very much, Mayor and councillors. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Bruce, yes.
Good. Thank you very much, Mayor and councillors. My name is Bruce Hartnett. I am Secretary of the Alphington Fairfield Appropriate Development Association, more commonly known as AFADA, which has just shy of a couple of hundred members. I'm making this submission on behalf of AFADA. I'll speak collectively on the 3 applications, and I endorse and support what Fiona Curry just said. The local Alphington community has been constructively involved from the very start in the redevelopment of the Amcor site. Indeed, it is used as a case study in town planning courses and in courses in relation to government. The master plan and the resulting development planning overlay was based on the following 3 key criteria: to have higher density development situated in the northwest corner of the site, and that development would scale down to the east along Heidelberg Road and to the south to the Yarra River. The DPO was a unique island development and would have no flow-on effect to the remainder of Alphington outside of the DPO, and that the Yarra riverfront would be protected from overdevelopment. Now, until now, Glenville has been compliant in constructing a large percentage of the site to the preferred heights of the DPO, and we commend them for that. But following Caden's successful appeal, which got a 14-storey tower converted to a 17-storey tower plus 2 other 14-storey buildings in the northwest corner, Glenville now sees this as an opportunity to significantly stray outside the preferred heights of the DPO. In the extreme case, Glenville is proposing a 140% increase, an increase of 140% from the preferred 5-storey height. Such a significant change deviates from the design principles of the master plan. And with this proposed increase in height, there is no quid pro quo in justifying an increase in height. That what are residents and the community getting in return? No increase in amenity, and in fact it's going backwards, as amenity will diminish if these 3 applications are successful. There's no increase in ground and upper level setbacks. The pocket park will be overshadowed by the adjacent high-rise towers, and the paper trail linear park between 17, 14 and 12-storey buildings will become a wind tunnel. In relation to parking, as already been commented, there is already a problem with parking in the Yarra Bend site, where occupancy has already taken place, and Yarra Council has put in place painted markings, and people are already parking outside of that during the week and on Sundays. So there's already a problem, so there's no argument to reduce the parking provision. But perhaps most importantly, ethically, there is a significant issue with these 3 applications, as we heard from one resident already. Future residents who were assumed not to know about this application have bought properties immediately adjacent to the east of these proposed applications, and they bought them in the expectation that they were going to get 5 stories for the Glenville-owned precinct along Chandler Highway. And now they'll be faced with 12, 10 and 8. And as we've recently found with the VCAT decision for the Home of Light, 700 Heidelberg Road, developers and now VCAT are using the Amcor site as a precedent for development along Heidelberg Road. In summary, these 3 applications are not consistent with the DPO, are excessive in height, they provide minimal setbacks, they diminish amenity, and are unethical in relation to the representations made to adjoining residents who are yet to move in, and they set a dangerous precedent for further development in Alphington and Fairfield. On this basis, the 3 applications need to be refused or approved with conditions based on the height of 5 stories, the preferred height of the DPO. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your submission, Bruce, and apologies if I cut out just then. Thank you very much. I appreciate you joining us tonight and conveying your point of view to councillors in helping our deliberation. Our next public submission comes from Lockie No. Lockie, are you with us tonight?
Yes, I am, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me? Yeah.
We can.
Thank you for allowing me to speak at tonight's meeting, Madam Mayor and councillors. My name is Lockie. No, I'm one of the residents in the Yarra Bend complex, along with Alan there. I'm actually one of the residents in the newly built townhouses along Parkview. So I was one of the first settlers in there, and I'm also on their committee. I'm the chairman of their committee. So I'm speaking on behalf of the residents there. I concur with what Alan, Bruce, and Fiona has put forward, so I won't go into too much length in detail of what they spoke of already. But to summarise, we are deeply concerned of the change in the DPO, the changing height. We feel have great effect on the future of Yarra Bend and the effect on the residents directly, as well as the surrounding Alphington community. Look, we recognise that there is a need for cheaper, affordable housing, but this change in DPO does not promise that and does not guarantee better standard of living for the Yarra Bend community in any way. In fact, it has, if anything else, put a few things in the spanner in the work. It has the changing height along the western border, as Fiona has pointed out and Bruce has pointed out, put an overshadow over the northern and also the northeastern border there. Changing that overshadowing potentially can reduce, as Alan had pointed out, the natural lighting directly through the houses, but also through the vegetation area. Also, the effect of that outer circle and known as the paper trail, as Bruce has pointed out, architectural sketches has already shown that there will be an effect of the wind tunnel, and the increasing height would undoubtedly reinforce this wind tunnel. I speak from personal experience living in the townhouse complex at the moment. There's a street corridor in the heart of the townhouse called Peck Walk. It's a lovely street area, but it's being in the heart of it, surrounded by townhouses on both sides. It's the miniature version of the wind tunnel. On a good day, the place is beautiful to be in. On a not so good day, when there are functions, parties, group gatherings, family discussion, let alone family feud, what happens at one end of the corridor can get amplified quite significantly a few hundred meters down that end of the corridor. So in terms of privacy, there's literally no privacy here. In terms of noise pollution, there's forever ongoing concern of noise pollution. So that's just a miniature version. As Bruce pointed out, that paper trail will have a bigger effect if the approval for the increase in building height is to proceed. The other concern, I speak on behalf of the residents, as Bruce pointed out, is that it's in a sense a false advertising of what we bought into without being aware that the change in height will affect the future of Yarra Bend, but also the reduction in public amenity. At the moment, the wellness area, public parkland and car parking space are already in contention, and this approval or this change in TPO does not promise or look at increasing public amenity for the local community. So on that effect, I don't think refusal of the the planning application is practical, but we'd like to see that Glenville come to the table and deliver their promise in terms of giving back to the community a bit more. So that's my summary. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your summary, Lockie, and for taking the time to be with us tonight and make a submission. I would like to now invite Frank Devlin from the Riverwood Owners Committee to address the meeting. Frank, are you with us?
Frank doesn't appear to be with us.
Okay. Ian Hammett, I can see you waiting patiently there. Would you like to address the meeting?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, Ian Hammett's my name. I'm a member of West Alphington residents that represent the Alphington community west of the Yarra Bend development. And we've submitted a detailed objections to the planning application, which I won't go into. I think this has pretty well been covered by our sister organisations, AFADA and ATMAG, so I won't go down that track. Look, we're most concerned about the size and height of the buildings in the Yarra Bend development that overlook our little community. We're talking about privacy. We're talking about what we regard as total disregard for our community. Basically, what is the DPO provisions that were agreed upon as part of the community consultation process 5 years ago. This included executives from Glenville, and we've got notes from that time that can back all this up. Rory and our sister organisations were given a week to respond to the news that this planning application was going through. I say that this is just totally manifestly unfair. The developer is riding roughshod, if you like, over what we call a community agreement for plans regarding the site. The promises made by the developer at public meetings haven't been honoured, with the developer now taking the matter to VCAT. We're totally disillusioned with the planning process. We want a process that we can trust, and the community, we've got limited resources. We have to battle with VCAT over issues that we previously agreed to. It's very, very draining on the community. So to cut to the chase, we want the council to defer any decision on the building application until the community has had a chance to assess it properly and respond to the changes that are proposed. We want council to go into bat for us, to truly represent our community, to prosecute, if need be, our case at VCAT. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ian, for your passion and for your for taking the time to be with us tonight. And yeah, thank you for conveying those points to us, which we'll certainly take into consideration. Next, in the community submissions, we have Keith McHugh. Keith, are you with us tonight?
Mayor, just looking at the list of submitters, it doesn't appear that any of the remaining people that are listed are with us. So perhaps if I'll just run through the names of the people we haven't heard from, and if they are there, now would be the chance to speak up. Tracy Lawson, Anne Graham, Adam Brooks, Dora Tripiotis, Angela Kerr, Lisa Randall, Frank Devlin, Keith McHugh, Todd Perry, or Warren Giesbers. If any of you are with us, now would be the time to unmute and speak. I should say, Madam Mayor, that all of these people have lodged written and formal submissions to one or more of these applications, so their views have been considered in the recommendation before you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. So we'll now go to item 12.1, which is planning application PLN 190841 concerning 81 Latrobe Avenue in Alphington, Artisan West. Councillors, are there any questions of Ms. Osman, Council Officer, regarding the recommendation or regarding the application, or questions to the submitters or the applicant? Councillor Stone?
Thank you. I actually can't find the page, but it is to Miss Osman, and there are in both this and 60 Chandler Highway, there were references to concerns raised by Yarra's open space planning team about conflicts between cyclists and pedestrians in some of the open spaces, and the response from planners was this isn't an issue because they didn't believe that cyclists would use these spaces. And I guess as we've seen with COVID and the briefing we've had on the Heidelberg Road bike lanes, which have had a 60% increase in use just in the last few weeks, we're going to see people cycling much more. And also you can't tell cyclists where they're going to go. So I wondered how you can guarantee that cyclists won't use those places and not address the concerns of the open space team.
Ms. Osman?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there was a little bit of misinformation within the open space referral, which believed that the paper trail was a shared space when it's actually a dedicated pedestrian space. That's within the realm of why the recommendations are framed the way they are. This is not a shared space, it's an identified pedestrian priority area, and that's why the design has preferred pedestrians in its design rather than cyclists. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Ms. Osman. Are there any other questions? No. Councillor Landers?
Yeah, I've got a question for one of the submitters. I think it's Alan. He made commentary about when he bought the place, he had an expectation. I'm interested to know if he was shown any plans when he bought his unit, and was he led to believe that they were the plans that he was buying into? I am concerned that there's some form of prevention from him objecting, but I'm curious if you get to change the plan significantly, as has happened now, what happens to those objection rights? So I am curious to know from Alan, what he was actually shown when he bought the unit.
Alan, are you still with us?
I certainly am. I'm here.
Please.
We are actually going back quite some time. I do not believe we were shown any, even in terms of our unit, we weren't given highly detailed plans, but we were certainly given verbal information that the building on Chandler Highway, at that stage, I believe, was going to be 5 stories. We weren't given the meterage or anything like that, but that certainly was the case. We were shocked. I was shocked a week ago to discover this. What was the other part of the question? I didn't quite... from council, please.
I think you've answered it quite nicely. I think you were given representations that it was going to be a certain height, and I think you bought into that project on the expectations that that was going to be the height of the project.
I would probably follow up by saying that if we were aware that we were going to be 10 metres away from a 25 metre high building, that we may very well not have signed the contract.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for that information, Alan. I propose a way forward with a refusal motion. I seek a seconder. Councillor Stone, you will second the motion.
With an amendment.
With an amendment?
You've circulated what you are proposing to do.
Thank you. I accept your amendment. Is that...
Do you want to hear it first?
Certainly.
So you might want to move your motion, then I'll move my amendment.
Okay. Well, I just seek a bit of advice. Do we vote on this motion and then vote on an amendment, or are we? Do I hear the amendment and then accept or refuse that amendment?
As I understand it, you've presented a motion. Councillor Stone is going to offer you the opportunity to amend that motion, and should you accept that, then that becomes the new motion. It doesn't require a formal amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. So my motion is up on the screen. Councillor Stone, would you like to indicate what your amendment is?
Yes. I would add a clause 3, poor accessibility within the communal and publicly accessible areas, and a point 4, excessive room depth to a number of apartments resulting in poor daylight and internal amenity.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I was probably supposed to read my grounds of refusal, which is that the proposed height and scale of the development is excessive and contrary to the DPO, and that there is insufficient building separation between buildings provided. Thank you for being nimble with that screen, Ms. Nigu. So yes, I do accept your amendments. Thank you, Councillor Stone. And I will now speak to the motion. So I acknowledge and thank council officers for drafting their recommendations, and I acknowledge the time that you spent trying to find an acceptable solution that takes into account the applicant's proposal, the planning scheme and the community. However, as a representative of that community, I have heard and share the concerns about this application and feel compelled to refuse it. When I was running for council and in these first 3 months of this term, I've heard many stories about the exemplary working relationship between the Alphington community and the applicant at the former Alphington paper mill site. For a development that is set to double the population or more of the suburb, I was astounded that such respect had grown between groups, resulting in a development plan overlay, a DPO, that reflected the compromises made by each side, and that until now, that DPO has been largely adhered to. This proposal, however, flies in the face of that DPO by proposing buildings of up to 12 stories in areas where the preferred height is 5 stories. That represents an almost 250% height increase on what was agreed. It makes a farce of the agreements reached between the developer and the community, and it sets a worrying precedent for the rest of the site, largely undeveloped, and indeed for the rest of Heidelberg Road, where much of the heights are capped by preferred maximums of 5 stories as well. There is, as I believe Bruce mentioned, and Fiona, no urban design imperative in the DPO for degradation of the site from the corner building. And in fact, the justification given by the applicant that it is an urban design response to an approval of an adjacent 17 stories underpins this fear that the complete disregard for a DPO is catching. And we certainly see that in the proposal that we'll hear next for 60 Chandler and the following in the following item. The refusal also captures the additional concerns of the development, including insufficient building separation and between the buildings, and I'm happy to add those additional grounds by Councillor Stone. In short, I urge the councillors to join me in this refusal and look forward to council reflecting that position to the best of its ability at the tribunal. Councillor Stone, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will. Not a lot to add to what you've said. It is disappointing to be at this point. I think the resident submitters have described very well the history of the development plan. The fact that it was a three-way collaboration, which is very rare between the community, the developer and the council. It was a very collaborative effort and a very willing developer, and when we got to approving this plan, everyone was happy with it. That is very unusual, and a lot of work went in to make that happen. But what then happened was that part of the site was sold on to a developer who wasn't part of that collaborative process, who pushed the boundary. VCAT agreed with them, and that completely upset the balance of this plan and the overall concept. Not only did that, but it broke the trust and confidence that the community has in the planning process, which is a very hard one, as we all know. We all know public confidence in planning is low, and it's no wonder when things like this happen, when you've got an effective process with buy-in from everybody and it's undermined with the stroke of a VCAT pen. On this particular application, height is an issue, but it's not the issue. The issue is the confidence in a system, which is further degraded when agreement is dismissed like this. I think a lot's been made in the planner report, and it's a very good report, that preferred heights are not mandatory. We all know that. We all knew that when we went into this enterprise, and strict adherence to those heights is not required. And we have varied heights on other parts of this development overall. I think everyone accepts a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but 50% higher is a different proposition altogether from what was agreed on. I've got the front page of the development plan here. That picture is what was promised, and that is what everyone was expecting. It's very hard to see how what's being proposed is generally in accordance with. It's not what was understood by everyone as part of this process. There was always a drop anticipated from that corner from 14 stories to 5 stories. That was a big drop. That's not new. It's very hard to see how that urban design argument stacks up. Tall buildings, there are many other issues. Tall buildings need decent separation for livability. Once you get over 5 or 6 stories, you need a decent separation for good space between them and good amenity. The accessibility of buildings B and D are problematic, steep ramps, narrow ramps, that's all detailed in the report, and some apartments don't have sufficient light. There's lots of other little issues with this, and yes, they could be conditioned, But this is not the point. This was meant to be a high quality, excellent development with high design quality and outstanding public spaces. Tall buildings, overshadowed public space, problematic accessibility, that is not an exemplary development, and it can do better. So while let's acknowledge the community and not the decision makers in planning, it is rare to have this situation where they are on board, where all parties agree, and it's appalling that it would be tossed away in this instance. This application should be rejected, and I support Councillor De Vietri's motion.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Are there any speakers against? Thank you. I will put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Mayor, may I just clarify? And the second line, the word issue, I presume, should be issued with the D, just for clarification.
In the motion?
In the motion. The second line, the word issue, I presume, should be issued with a D on the end. Just for
Through
correction.
you, Chair, that's correct. It should be issued.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Let's move on to planning application 190606, item number 12.2, concerning the development at 60 Chandler Highway, Alphington. Councillors, are there questions for the council officer, Ms Osman, or the submitters? Any questions? No. In that case, I seek a way forward, and I have a motion of refusal to move. And the refusal is on the basis that it exceeds the preferred heights of 5 stories and is contrary to the preferred building height nominated within the development plan. Could I also see the motion, Ms Niku? Thank you. That it will result in excessive overshadowing of the outer circle paper trail, that there is insufficient building separation and insufficient external communal open space with adequate solar access. Can I seek a seconder for this motion?
Well, that's also missing a D.
Sorry, my camera has paused for a second and I believe somebody's trying to say something. I will turn my camera off.
It's been corrected.
Sorry, I lost vision for a moment there. Could I seek a seconder for this motion? Councillor Mohammed, thank you. I will speak to this motion. So I have requested this refusal on the basis that it far exceeds the preferred heights of 5 stories and is contrary to the preferred building height nominated within the Alphington Paper Mill development of 5 stories. As Councillor Stone had mentioned, while preferred heights may be seen as a guideline, a proposal of up to 8 stories where the preferred height is 5 is out of proportion to what was agreed on between the applicant, the council and the community. It responds to a dangerous precedent communicated all the way from the 17-storey Caden development on the corner through 81 Latrobe Street, where 12 stories are being tested, and here to 60 Chandler. It reinforces that precedent and it must be curtailed in the refusal of this application. There are also additional grounds of refusal associated with this proposal, including excessive overshadowing within that major pedestrian route, the outer circle paper trail, and insufficient building separation. I ask that councillors support this motion and vote to refuse the application. Councillor Mohammed, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers against? No. In that case, I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. We now come to item 12.3, planning application 190931 at La Trobe Avenue in Alphington.
Yeah, I've got a proposed way forward for that. That was distributed earlier today.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. I'll first ask if any of the councillors have questions for the council officer or for submitters. I have a question that I would like to direct towards one or more of the submitters who represent the community groups. Fiona Curry, Bruce Harnett, or Ian Hammett. I would appreciate a very, very quick indication as to whether you take issue with the additional height of 120 centimetres on this particular application due to the slope of the land, the protrusion of the basement on one end, which takes the number of stories officially to 6 stories. Fiona, could I ask you to comment on that particular aspect of the design?
As I indicated in both my submission and my correspondence to Council, which was a joint submission from APMAG, AFADA and SAFCA, there is no major concern about that additional 120 centimetres in terms of height. Again, this is a preferred height, and a preferred height of 5 stories plus 120 centimetres is not 12 stories. I think that this is a valid height.
Thank you for that comment. Bruce, would you have an additional comment? I take it that Fiona speaks on behalf of a few different groups.
Yes, Mayor, thanks very much. I agree with Fiona. It's a bit over a metre is not a material issue, so we have no concerns with this.
Thank you, Bruce. Ian? Sorry, you're on mute, Ian. I believe you're still on mute. I'm unable to hear you. If you could unmute your microphone button. We can't hear you. I might leave that question there then with the responses from Bruce and Fiona. Thank you. Councillor Jolly, you have a motion to move?
Sorry, Mayor, Miss Osmond had her hand up during that exchange.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Ms Osmond?
Through you, Chair, I did just want to make sure that everybody was aware that the scale variation is 1.2 metres. So just that everyone's clear that it's that's the extent of height variation we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Osmond. Councillor Jolly, would you like to propose your motion?
Yeah, and I think Mayor Councillor O'Brien is going to second it, so I'm confident in moving it that I do have a seconder. The motion says that we note the report of the officers assessing the planning permit application and determined that it has been in position, it would have issued a planning permit for construction of a multi-storey apartment building and townhouse and reduction of statutory car parking requirements, etc., as per the officer recommendation, with a new 1E reduction in the footprint and or height of the wet lap building, including levels above, so the building does not exceed 5 stories at any point. I think we have to have some context here. The developer has put in 3 changes to the heights through this XM core site. The deal that was done several years ago, the DPO, in alliance and driven by the residents, Yarra Council, and eventually the state government, was one of the greatest things that ever happened in the history of Yarra, because the fear was prior to that the XM core site would turn into another Docklands, another South Bank, a soulless development with none of the reforms that the residents want. 5 or 6% low-cost housing, 3 open spaces, height reductions and height restrictions that we fought hard to get, massive number of community facilities, including school facilities, and a protection of the River Yarra bank that at the time we were happy with. Now, it's no surprise that since that DPO was agreed to through the blood, sweat and tears of the residents. Probably the most militant, the most organised section of Yarra residents are the Alphington community. There's several resident groups up there, all united on this issue. Was not surprisingly, the developers started to push back straight away. On the low-cost housing, they said, well, after 10 years, we get that back. We know, because we've debated it over the last year or two, all their shenanigans in relation to the north bank of the Yarra and the destruction of the Yarra, which they claim had nothing to do with them. And now they're trying to do it on height. And I think it's absolutely vital that this council tonight, this new council tonight, says to their 3 applications, thanks, but no thanks. We want to stick to the DPO. We don't want to give an inch on the DPO, let alone over 1 metre on the DPO in terms of 12.3. And that is why I think that this motion is very, very important, because it sends a message that this council will not be dictated to by developers who want to ignore what was agreed to and signed up for several years ago. On that basis, I want and encourage the councillors to support this motion, and then we can have a trifecta of wins tonight and put those developers back in the box and get back with the job that what they told the people who've moved in there was going to be the case. The open spaces, the height reductions, the low-cost housing, the community facilities, the protection for the banks of the Yarra. We can't give an inch on this, because once we give an inch, then they will go for a yard and it will never end. And that's why I think that we need to be staunch on 12.3 like we have been with 12.1 and 12.2. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly, and I'm aware I have done things a little bit out of order by not seeking a seconder before you spoke. So thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Councillor O'Brien, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, Mayor. I note, I understand that there is no heritage protections on this particular, the Whitlap building, but that does not mean that it doesn't have any heritage value. It just means that a review of its heritage significance may not have been conducted. I understand the community has not requested a refusal of this particular application or extra conditions, but beyond the officer's recommendations, but wonder if this has to do with objection fatigue, other issues having higher priority, we'll take what we can get, those sorts of matters. So I guess my view is that it's an ill-conceived design in a low-rise residential area, and it could be more sensitive to the actual building itself. So I am going to vote to refuse. I urge you to support Councillor Jolly's motion.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Would anyone like to speak against? Councillor Landers?
First of all, I agree with in fact, everything that Councillor Jolly had to say. He's absolutely correct. You can't go to the public, you can't sort of have an arrangement and then 2 seconds later you change your mind. It's not on. This issue of preferred heights needs to be discussed. Preferred heights is not 28 metres one day and then it's 43 metres the next. Preferred heights is about adjustments where there's unintended issues around basements or heritage issues or natural ground levels, things that you can't control. So it gives the planners, it gives everybody a little bit of flexibility in terms of adjustments. Mandatory heights means there's absolute control. You've got no wiggle room at all. So I think, yes, I do agree with Councillor Jolly's sentiments. I think he's spot on. I think we have to send a powerful message. But I think we also need to recognise that preferred heights really are preferred heights, and this is what preferred heights are about. So I'm sort of suggesting that we should go ahead with this particular permit. Oh, well, I'm voting against the amendment, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Do we have someone to speak for? In that case, I will put this motion to the vote. All those in favour?
Hang on. I get a right of reply.
Pardon me. Councillor Jolly.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that we have to stick to the DPO. We have got preferred heights at the moment, that is true, but we wanted to have mandatory heights. And the state government didn't give us mandatory heights. The relevant authorities didn't give us mandatory heights. That was a major problem for the residents. It's something that we're not happy with. And if we now say that, well, you know, we wanted mandatory heights, we didn't get them, we've now got preferred heights, but we're willing to go a metre higher than the preferred heights. The next time that we try to go for mandatory heights, they'll say, well, we didn't give you mandatory heights, we gave you preferred heights, and you went higher with it anyway. It will be used against us in the future. It will be used against us, even if it was 1 millimetre higher. We have to hold the line, in my opinion, on this issue because of the precedent that it sets, not just for this developer, but for all developers in the future. And the state government will say to us every time we ask for mandatory heights in the future, you mess around with your preferred heights. You go a little bit higher, you go a bit lower, it doesn't really matter. So I think that in order to strengthen our case in the future, we have to hold the line on this matter, and I'd encourage the councillors to do so. It's only 1 metre, but it's the political implications are way bigger than whatever it is, 1 point something metres that Ms. Osman explained to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. I'll put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is lost. I would like to propose an alternative motion, which is to accept the council officer's recommendations for this particular application. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Mohammed, thank you. I will speak to the motion. So this building is a proposal to build effectively a 6-storey building where the preferred height is 5-storey. The reason for that extra 6-storey is because of a protrusion at the slope of the land, which makes the basement protrude by 120 centimetres. My understanding is that the community is largely in support of the council officer's recommendation, and that it's simply due to the incline of the land, which makes this count as an entire floor. I believe this situation is one where the very notion of preferred heights can come into play. We didn't get mandatory heights. We wanted mandatory heights, but we didn't get them. And we can't pretend that we did. Enforcing a strict adherence to 5 stories is treating this as a mandatory height rather than a preferred height, and in my opinion could make the contest more hotly fought and possibly lost at the tribunal and risk good faith between the council, the community and the applicant. And for that reason, I am asking councillors to consider approving the council officer's recommendation with the suite of conditions that have been proposed by the council officers to make adjustments for the livability and the form of this particular development. Councillor Mohammed, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll just echo what you said. Thank you. Very well said. Okay.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? In that case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried.
Can we get a division on that, please?
Certainly. All those in favour? Councillor De Vietri, Councillor Stone, Councillor Mohammed, Councillor Crosland, Councillor Wade, Councillor Herschel, Councillor Landy, sorry, Councillor Nguyen.
And opposed?
No, we capture that in the minutes, Councillor.
Thank
Jolly.
you.
Yep, it is captured.
Thank you. We now come to item 12.4, planning scheme amendments, a possible alternative approach. Council officers, would you like a report? Councillors, would you like a report from council officers? Yes. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors. Councillors, I will provide some context and a little bit of background here, I think, as that's important for the council and the community to hear. The planning scheme amendments that council have been seeking for a number of years do take a great deal of time and a great deal of work. They require work over a number of areas, and even to get a planning scheme amendment on exhibition requires what's called authorisation from the Minister to do so. As we all know, Yarra's been under very, very significant development pressure for probably 10 years, and that certainly looks like it will continue. Staff certainly started to introduce the idea of design development overlays that you've heard about tonight in some respects, some 4 years ago. The reason for that was because structure planning, which was really required of the state government, was very difficult to get progression on and effectively just kept getting bogged down. The logic of the design development overlay approach was to actually start to try to tackle the built form and built height and bulk, which is principally probably a lot of the concerns of the council and the community. The approach certainly looked at the heritage, urban design and planning aspects in tandem, and trying to put those into one lens, or as I call a prism way of looking at it. And that was to certainly try and get the planning schemes to have that strategic justification that could be addressed by the department and also the minister. So that all takes a great deal of time to manage that space and a number of other aspects along the way. So we've certainly achieved a number of design development overlays in a permanent manner, Johnson Street, Queen's Parade, and hopefully looks like Swan Street. That approach at the outset followed seeking interim design development overlays. The backfilling process is, as I said, really doing interims and then trying to get permanent provisions. And there has been some success in that. So we've got some interim design development overlays in place at the moment from the Minister. A couple of years ago, Bridge Road, Victoria Street and Collingwood South are some of those. You'll note, councillors and the community can see attachment 1 in the report is a letter from the Minister that is expressing concern about the interim approach and the time taking to get those to permanence. The office has certainly been endeavouring to move a number of areas forward around the city for its planning schemes. The proposition put by the senior planners at the Department of Land, Water and Environment is that there could be an alternate way of trying to progress some of these matters due to the development pressure that Yarra is under. And that's what this report's about, Mayor. So there is an opportunity of, rather than the normal process, which is long and extensive and expensive via a panel process, planning panels, is to use an advisory committee that the Minister could set up. So the offer is there from the Minister via that letter and his staff to invite the council to look at an alternate way. And as I said, that's what this report's about. So it's about having a standing advisory committee that council could refer matters to. Mayor, the original terms of reference for this from the DELP staff was a little bit more ambitious. What myself and my colleagues in the Senior Planning Area Council have been doing is to try and put some checks and balances into the terms of reference so that council's influence and the community's input is still preserved. And that's a fine balance between trying to improve the system so we could get some planning scheme amendments ultimately approved quicker, but also maintaining that those important elements. So the Standing Advisory Committee approach has the benefits of trying to get these planning scheme matters quicker and also effectively less expensive. Sometimes panels get bogged down in legal debate, and the Standing Advisory Committee approach with this terms of reference could actually try to limit that. So the draft terms of reference is a key in this matter. The report seeks to outline the context, and hopefully this preamble certainly assisted in that. My judgment is that there does need to be a serious look at this alternate way, and importantly, as the report says, the Bridge Road and Victoria Street and Collingwood South interim design development overlays do expire in the middle of this calendar year. We got an extension from late the end of September last year to only the middle of this calendar year by the Minister, and you can read the letter from the Minister yourself, and you would have done that. So my recommendation is that the Council should seriously consider if there is this alternate way. The terms of reference is a key to that, and I stress that what we've crafted from the Yarra Council officers, including myself, has been one to try to strike a balance where council still maintain influence and where the community still can have submissions. Each additional check and balance you put in to preserve that does extend the process. So in essence, Mayor, this is about trying to find a quicker way to get planning scheme provisions gazetted into the planning scheme in a permanent manner so the council can better seek to manage the development pressure. I'll leave it there, Mayor, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you,
the
Mr.
terms of
Phillips.
reference is there for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for that. I've just turned my video off for that so that I can see you better and you can see me. Are there any questions of Mr. Phillips? Councillor Landers.
Mayor, I've got a series of questions and hopefully Mr. Phillips can sort of answer them reasonably quickly. I suppose the first question is, when did this only, as I understand it, there's only 3 interim DDOs actually on the table at the moment. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Johnson Street and Queen's Parade had them, but they're now converted to permanent provisions are in place. So the answer is yes.
So Collingwood South, Victoria Street and Bridge Road. Is that correct? Yes.
That's yes.
And there's no other interim DDOs out there?
Officers are proposing some further ones. At the next council meeting, there'd be some further ones in Collingwood and Fitzroy. And about 12 months ago, council resolved to seek other parts of Collingwood and Fitzroy as interims, but the minister has not approved those as yet. So council have some requests out there for interims, but you're correct, in existing interims, it's those 3, correct.
Now, when were these interim controls actually brought in?
Approximately 2.5 years ago. It would have been probably 2 years at the end of September last year, and that's when we had to get some extensions, and that's now through to the end of June this year.
So over the 2.5 years, what input have the residents had into these interim DDOs?
There's been no particular input from the residents. The reason for interim provisions is to try to do the strategic work that would enable the DELP staff and the minister to see their way through to approve the interims as a holding measure. If going to community consultation for interims, it would extend the process significantly with due process. So the endeavour with interims is to get them in place, then backfill with the strategic work and seek the permanence.
But for 2.5 years, the residents have had no input whatsoever into these interim DDOs.
That's correct.
Yes. So now in VCAT, how much does a interim DDO carry in terms of weight when there hasn't been a public exhibition?
They still carry significant weight because they're in the planning scheme. They're gazetted into the planning scheme. They would not carry as much weight as a permanent provision that's been through public consultation and scrutiny. So they do carry significant weight. They are in the planning scheme. That's an important point to make.
But there are examples where VCAT has remarked that there's examples where because a DDO hasn't been exhibited, therefore not much weight will be given to it.
There would be some comments. I'm not sure about not much weight. It's just less weight than it would be if it was ordinarily done, yes.
I'll take less weight. All right, last question. On July the 1st, if I happen to be living next to a block of land that was subject to a mandatory height control under an interim DDO, have I got the expectation that the owner of that land could then apply to do whatever he wants then?
If the minister does not extend the controls, then those 3 interim provisions expire, and those provisions aren't there anymore.
So,
I should just follow up. There are other. It's not like there's a hole in the planning scheme. There are many other provisions, obviously the normal provisions, but in terms of the design and development provisions that embellish the planning schemes, they would expire if they're not extended, correct.
All right. Last question. Now, one of the successes of Swan Street DDO was the precinct, the idea of dividing the area into precincts. What is the opportunity under the advisory committee to go along the same sort of route?
Yes, 2 comments, councillors. One is that I think a precinct approach is a good approach. Swan Street the panel there commended council on that. We've all lived and learned a bit, so rather than having one DDO over a very large expanse, you can break it into logical areas where there's nuances and differences. The other point I should add to, for councillors' benefit in the community, with Bridge Road and Victoria Street, where got some consultants to assist us in effectively a refresh look at those interims, because they've been in for a few years, and to learn and take up opportunities where they could be modified or tuned up. And our intention is to come back to council in the next little while, and that would then inform, or be the council's position to inform the Standing Advisory Committee if council goes down that path. So in essence, we are looking at a refresh anyway, and there's a decision tree here for the council whether they wish to try this alternate approach or some other means. But I have to say the Minister's view and comments in that letter is quite explicit, and he seems to be saying, I'm not going to extend these interims unless we get a wriggle on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Are there any other questions from councillors? Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I had to drop out for a minute, and I hope Councillor Landers didn't ask this question, but it was about the advisory group, and it's most of the submissions we've had from the community are wanting input into the terms of reference. So could you just explain a bit more precisely whose advisory committee it is, and what council's role is in relation to the terms of reference?
Yes, thank you, councillors and Mayor. The invitation is for council to look into this alternate process. My view has been that the terms of reference has always been a critical part. The terms of reference before you is what I've signed off on from senior planning staff in my area at Yarra. It is different to the original proposition, if you like, by DELP. I do want to stress that. The endeavour by DELP was to assist council and probably have a far more roving opportunity for the Standing Advisory Committee, which sounds attractive, but there is the matter of council influence and the community input that I'm very much acutely aware of. So we've crafted terms of reference that we think might suit that fine balance. If council went along the path of going down a resolution like this, whether it's this terms of reference or another one, the next step would be to formally request the Minister to set up a Standing Advisory Committee with this terms of reference, or the adjusted one that council might make. It would be the Minister's prerogative to accept that terms of reference or to change it, because, to answer your direct question, Councillor Stone, a Standing Advisory Committee reports to the Minister. A planning panel reports to the council. Now, what we've done in this draft is to write in that the Standing Advisory Committee would provide a report to both the Minister and the council, and the council have an opportunity of looking at the final recommended provisions, if you like, form a view and provide that to the Minister. So they're some of the checks and balances we've tried to craft into this particular draft.
Thank you. And just to clarify, the DELP version didn't have it coming back to the council for scrutiny with public input.
It certainly didn't necessarily require the public input, that's correct, and a few other bits and pieces. So again, we've tried to craft it which we think hopefully would find that fine balance. And I'm not being negative of what the DELP staff were recommending or putting forward. Start with a clean sheet of paper. They are certainly trying to assist because they know the development pressure that the council is under and the community, and the difficulty in navigating the planning system to get permanent planning scheme provisions into the scheme. It's very laborious, very costly, and this is a novel approach, and what we're trying to do is craft something that might work, and council could start softly if you like, and if it works then could feed through council resolution, I must stress, request the Minister to put further matters to the advisory committee. So it is up to the council to determine whether to go down this path in some form or another, but the risk in not doing that is that the Bridge Road, Victoria Street and Collingwood South interims expire, and that we don't get any progression on the other interim requests that are on the Minister's table, and indeed coming through council with officer recommendations to seek further interims or provisions.
Sorry, Mayor, can I ask one more follow-up?
Please.
Just on that last point, Mr Phillips, we've got more interim DDOs in the wings that we're going to ask for. Are you suggesting that the Minister may not support those without a panel?
There is Heidelberg Road and Collingwood Fitzroy at least.
Parade.
Well, yes, the two I mentioned are certainly on the Minister's desk, and others, Alexander Parade, the ones that are coming through to the 2nd of March for council consideration. There's matters in Cremorne that would assist in trying to get some things moving and get into the planning scheme. Councillors are well aware that community have agitated around the Gipp Street area. I think it was last November, December, it's St George's Road area, and nearly every couple of months, community members are saying to councillors, well, we need some more planning provisions in area ABC, and we're just fully subscribed, and the amount of work and time and cost to try and get planning schemes up is incredibly extensive. I know return councillors know that, a lot of community members know that, and I've certainly been saying it to the new councillors.
Thank you, Mr Phillips, for that explanation. If there are no other questions from councillors, I will invite the members of the public to make submissions to this item. And first off, we have Virginia Noonan. Do we have Virginia in the room with us?
Yes, we do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I accept what is being said in relation to the need to move on these. It's been a terrible situation for all parties involved, especially the community and developers, any interested parties having to sit and wait to see where these three areas are going to go, and for sitting for a long time. And I also accept the frustration that the Minister has and the comments he's made in his letters. But looking at the terms of reference, as a community person who's been involved in the planning panel process, I have a number of concerns that don't pick up issues that would be normally addressed in the planning panel. And I think the number of them are addressed in a letter that was sent to councillors today by Anne Horrigan-Dixon on behalf of interested parties. But a few things that I want to pick up is the lack of terms of reference to determine the success of such an advisory committee. Will these terms of reference be established before the proposed appointment of the advisory committee and included in their terms of reference? And will these terms of references be exhibited for public comment before they're actually put into the overall terms of reference? It seems to lack any sort of evaluation. We're saying, and this has just been said, it's a novel approach, and there is no mention of, in the terms of reference, any sort of evaluation or process to see whether this novel approach actually works. And I would hope that if it does go ahead, that this is actually put in before that actually proceeds. So if it's not, I don't know why it's not there, and if not, why not? So I'd like a response to that. The other point that I want to raise, another point I want to raise in relation to heritage, in relation to the terms of reference, and it's one of a number of, there could be 2 or 3 people on the advisory committee. Heritage for the City of Yarra is a significant issue, and trying to protect what we've got. But we've found that in previous instances, when a planning panel has been in place or perhaps also with the advisory committee, that a heritage person with who's expert in the area has not been appointed, or may be appointed, but not necessarily to the advisory committee. And I'd ask that the council, as part of this process, seek support from the minister to have a heritage person expert on these advisory panels. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission. And I note that there were a few questions in there, so I'd invite Mr. Phillips. Would you like to address those now or at the end of the submissions?
Madam Mayor, it would be appropriate if I could just quickly make a comment now, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
In relation to the second one, heritage, the draft terms of reference is number one, the advisory committee is to have members with the following skills, and there's A, B, C, D. B is built form, heritage and urban design. The others relate to planning, economic development, urban geography, traffic and transport planning. So I think that's covered, Mayor, in terms of heritage. In relation to the KPIs and success factors, it's a good point. I don't, if we try and build everything into the terms of reference, it might be difficult. Council by letter resolution could ask the minister to in his terms, reference to the advisory committee, seeing it's a different approach, come up with some terms, key performance indicators or success factors. Just a thought for you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Our next submitter, and thank you very much, Virginia, for coming to present to us tonight. Our next submitter is Anne Horrigan-Dixon. Anne, are you with us tonight?
I am.
There you are. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm Anne Horrigan-Dixon. I chair the Queen's Parade Heritage Planning and Traders Group. We consist of 8 planning and heritage groups in Yarra, and we've been working cooperatively together with local community and local experts in the planning and heritage area. And we have been heavily involved with the Queen's Parade Amendment, which everybody concedes was a great outcome for the whole community. We did this in a very respectful and way with partnership with the strategic planning with the City of Yarra, and everybody agreed we had a good outcome. So I'm putting that on the table so that you know that we're a respectful and very professional group to work with. I actually put a letter in today asking, and I've discussed it with councillors, for a 2-week deferment so that we can have a really good look at the terms of reference. And I want to say that this is very hard for us as community members. We need to make sure that in these terms of reference, that the community input that exists with the planning panel process is protected in these terms of reference. Now, we saw this on the agenda last week. We have scrabbled around over the weekend to try to pull 8 groups together, and a lot of my groups said to tell you that a lot of these people work in real jobs and they're not available all the time, so it's very hard for them to do it. Protect Fitzroy North is in an 8 or 9 day VCAT hearing, so they can't participate. So we've asked for a deferment so that the councillors, the council officers and ourselves could really look closely at the terms of reference to make sure that what is included offers the best model, because this is the first council in Victoria that is going to take this up, and we would pride ourselves on having the very, very best terms of reference that other councils can say, well, that is really great. And at the moment, I don't believe we're there. It's very complex. We've had people working on it. We've got calls out to seek advice from other experts in Victoria to see if they can give us some advice on this. And I'm going to raise a couple of issues. One of them is, in the minister's letter, he says very clearly, it is important that the community and landowners can make submissions and have their views heard on the planning controls being introduced in these areas. And looking at these terms of references, we've got big question marks about whether that is actually firmly put into these terms of reference. When I look at the diagram, which is figure 1 on the officer's report, in stage 1, the 4th box has Council Exhibits Amendment 4 weeks. Now, I want to explain to councillors that we have worked really effectively on the gasworks site, our community got the better outcome than council could have done by themselves. We had a meeting with 400 people where people put submissions in, they attended, but it takes time. And we don't have, if we've only got 4 weeks for an exhibition period, it is not long enough. We've got to ensure that when these DDOs come out, and the other process is that it isn't transparent, we get them and then all of a sudden they're there and they're massive, and then we've got just 4 weeks to be able to digest the information, come up with what we need, believe would be the better outcome, and get submissions lodged with either the Planning Advisory Council or the committee or the council. So we're asking for a deferment so that we, as a group of councillors, council officers and the community, could quickly scrabble together a working group to work through these terms of reference so that we get the very, very best outcome for what I think would be a really great way forward for Yarra. We are not against it, we are in favour of it, but as Bruce said, those terms of reference are critical, and we believe that the community has got a really good opportunity to have positive input into them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and your passion is tangible, so thank you very much for joining us tonight, and it's great to hear from you. Councillor Landers, we might wait until we reach the end of all the submissions for councillors to ask questions, just as a matter of time. So I'll invite Kenneth Gomez, if Kenneth is with us. Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Would you like to make your submission?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep mine short because I think I don't want to repeat what Anne or Virginia or others have said. Very sympathetic to Mr. Phillips' predicament. I think seeing what's happening with those interim DDOs coming up for non-renewal is a very, very risky sort of position for the community to be in. I'm going to endorse whatever Anne said. I do agree that giving the community a little bit more time to understand and digest what these changes mean with the new terms of reference would be very useful. I can only point out that the community to date has been very, at least around these parts of Fitzroy North and around Queensborough in particular, and the gasworks side, is that we've been very constructive in our support of the process. As Anne said, you know, through our involvements, through our community outreach and through our engagement with the process, we've been able to sort of protect heritage, protect the economic viability of Queen's Parade, put in some appropriate controls, but also allow for reasonable, appropriate development at height. And in the gasworks site, you know, in excess of what I think the council officers wanted, we were able to achieve, I think, up to 20% social housing as a grant from the minister. So, giving us a little bit of time to digest, seek our own internal experts, of which there's a lot within the community, to come up with a reasoned position put to this change, I think would be useful. I point out to you that we were only made aware of this whole change at 5:30 p.m. on February the 6th. That's not a lot of time for us to deal with, especially for all of us who are sort of busily involved in other things. But like I said, I'm very, very sympathetic to the position that the council finds itself in. So at the very least, if you're going to look for a way forward, at least limit the terms of reference and this change to the interim DDOs. I think it was Victoria Street, Collingwood South and Bridge Road. Just limit the changes to those interim DDOs. See how they go, see how the community can participate, see whether there's effective outcome, but leave everything else to the existing processes, which, while they may take a long time, do seem to work, at least for, you know, when people do engage in it with merit and gusto, as I say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for addressing the meeting tonight, Kenneth. Good to see you. We have one last submission from Greg Channel. Good to see you tonight. Thank you for joining us. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The FRA Fitzroy Residents Association appreciate Yarra's officers' efforts working on these DDOs, given the complexity of Yarra and so much heritage in Yarra and such development pressure. The FRA is one of many groups who are party to the letter sent by Anne Horrigan-Dixon to councillors today. We also do prefer to have a 14-day deferral, so the pros and cons, as well as the terms of reference of a new planning advisory committee, can be considered by councillors with further community input. If council decide it's not possible to defer this item, given the timelines, and obviously we don't want interim DDOs expiring, the FRA suggests two things. One, that the new process be established as a trial, limited to only the 3 interim DDOs which may lapse this year. And two, that the proposed committee terms of reference be adjusted as per points already made this evening and in the letter sent to councillors today. The FRA support each of the necessary additions to the terms of reference for a trial committee process. We, again, I think that's the point made by Virginia, we do need the outcomes of the trial to be evaluated to demonstrate that the process is faster and still maintaining council law and community input. The FRA is also a little concerned as well. Obviously there is a major issue in that interim DDOs could lapse, and it points to a possible systemic issue between local and state government. So stepping back beside the decision tonight on the process, we wonder what else could be analysed or investigated to break the gridlock for DDO development and the processes between Yarra and state government in the mid to long term. So I guess overall the FRA doesn't believe that the new process alone is the full long-term solution. So maybe there's some concurrent actions that need to be considered as well as trialling a new process. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Greg, for joining us. Could I just ask those questions that you raise, are they raised as kind of questions for us to consider over time, or would you like an answer from a council officer with regards to the systemic relationship between council and the state?
Yeah, I think that's a sensible question on notice, or something to look at over a period rather than an immediate. Not expecting some immediate response this evening.
Thank you, and thank you for your considered submission to this item. So we now we're open to questions of the submitters or of council officers. Councillor Landers.
Thank you very much. I'd like to address a question to Anne, if I could. First of all, I'd like to congratulate her on the submission. I'd also like to congratulate her group on the Queen's Parade outcome, because it was pretty good. But I did like to ask Anne a couple of questions. The first question goes to how long did the Queen's Parade process take in terms of when it was initially started to when its final outcome was achieved? And I suppose the second question is, what does she sort of say to Richmond residents who have had to wait 2.5 years to even get to an exhibition stage, and are now looking at the interim DDO expiring in say 3 months' time, and then having to confront developments without any mandatory controls whatsoever? And I guess what does she feel about Ken's submission that perhaps a trial process with a concurrent consultation or process with residents to look at the long-term use of this sort of methodology to activate DDOs?
Thank you, Councillor Landers.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. The Queen's Parade DDO came in a crisis and a storm in October 2016, and when the Gurner proposal for the 4 16-storey towers occurred, and there was the first council meeting was actually held up in the Edinburgh Gardens community room with 400 people. So there was a lot of community push behind it. It took 4 years from the very, very beginning, where the minister said we need to put an interim DDO in place, which is what the council officers did, and it was gazetted in October the 1st last year. Now, I want to make it clear that the community involvement in this was according to the rules of the planning panels. We didn't ask for extensions. We fitted in with everything that needed to happen, and we were very professional. And at the end of the panel hearing, which was in the year before, the head of planning panels actually commended our group for its professionalism, for the way that we had raised money to stump up our own experts, and the fact that we had cross-examined the other experts, and that we had attended and, you know, been really cooperative. The situation is that is the process. It had nothing to do with the community. We didn't slow it down. We didn't do anything. We just went along with it. The question that you asked me, I think the second one about these interim DDOs, I want to make it clear that our group is not saying we do not want this process to go ahead. If this process goes ahead and it enables these interim DDOs to continue and the process to be speeded up, I think that is fantastic, and we want that to happen. Our question is, we want to get the terms of reference right, and we want to work cooperatively with the councillors as well as the council officers in the next 2 weeks. We are available to meet. And I want to thank Bruce Phillips for his explanation tonight, because that's the first time we as community members have had that explained to it. And it's happening on the night that you've got to make a decision, and that's why we have asked for a deferment. We have a problem with the council process on this. The third question was, what would I say to those residents if those interim controls lapse on the 30th of June? I think what I would say to them, I think I would take my group over them and say to your residents over there, can we help you? Can we help you to make things happen? We've got experience, we've had success, but we're willing to help you to work with council if we can, because we don't want that to happen to you. So we don't want anybody to be left without interim controls in any way. That is not what our group is on about. We are trying to get these controls put in place that will protect the city of Yarra into the future. Our big, big passion is to protect the Yarra villages, which we now know after the pandemic last year, with all the development that's happening, they are the life and heart and soul of Yarra. It's where people walk and congregate and meet their neighbours and friends. So we're passionate about getting these DDOs in place, appropriate DDOs in place, and anything our group can do to assist councillors or council or residents in Melba Ward, we are very, very happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Anne. Are there other questions from councillors? If not, I believe Councillor O'Brien, do you have a question or a motion?
I have both.
You have both, okay. Mm-hmm. I might hear your question first, and then I'll hear your Councillor Crosland's question.
I've already pretty clear what the answer is to this, but just for the benefit of other councillors in the decision making for my motion that's about to come forward, perhaps through you, Mayor, I'm not sure which officer, probably Mr. Phillips, would a 2-week deferment till the next meeting cost us anything in terms of it risk this process in any way?
Mayor, it's the council's prerogative. It's not my recommendation. The letter that you've seen in attachment 1 was late last year. Obviously, post election. I broached the topic with councillors pre-Christmas, but couldn't give detail because we're working with the department. And what's before you now is probably about version 8 of the terms of reference. Losing another 2 weeks, I think, is undesirable with 30th of June glaring down at us. It would be up to the Minister whether he raises concerns. I guess my strong recommendation is the Council need to show good faith. And Mayor, if you wanted to, I could highlight a couple of the provisions in the draft terms of reference, which I think provide comfort to the Council and what Ms Horrington-Dixon talked about. So I don't recommend 2-week delay. I think the terms of reference is reasonable, appropriate, and it's a matter of getting it off to the Minister. The Minister may agree with it, may want to change it anyway. So that would be my comments and judgment, but I'm happy to walk councillors through 2 or 3 paragraphs if that would help.
Thank you, Mr Phillips. Would councillors like that? Yes, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, if councillors could turn to the terms of reference, I'll just walk you through it, and I'll be very quick. If you go to paragraph 11, again, that talks about referred to the Minister upon a specific request from Yarra City Council. So there's one influence. 12, it's important that the process complements the Council's commitment to community engagement and addresses the requirements of the Act, which outlines the critical standard for any planning approval process, which is to meet the objectives of establishing clear procedures for amending the planning scheme with appropriate public participation in decision making. Paragraph 21, the Advisory Committee may not proceed with the consideration of a proposed planning scheme amendment which has been referred to it unless it is satisfied that Yarra Council has undertaken an appropriate level of consultation and public notification of the proposed planning scheme provisions, and so there's a judgment matter there admittedly, or Yarra Council has advised the Advisory Committee that no consultation is required. The only reason for that last tag there, Mayor, is in case there's some minor matter that in the Council's judgment it would be best to get it done quick and it doesn't need consultation. 22, all submissions received in response to the consultation and notification by Yarra City Council. The earlier version really had that the Standing Advisory Committee would do the notification. It's our view that Yarra should continue to direct that. And 24, the Advisory Committee must conduct a hearing and provide an opportunity for submitters to be heard if requested by any submitter, including Yarra Council. And 25, the Advisory Committee must not commence to conduct a hearing until Yarra City Council has provided the Advisory Committee with a response to submissions received in response to the consultation and notification carried out by the Yarra City Council. And 29, just quickly, the report would be back to the Minister and Yarra City Council. And they're probably the key ones, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Phillips. Councillor Crosland, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. My questions are, I've got a couple. They're directed towards Bruce, if I may. Just the first, I'll read them out, and then if you could reply to them, that'd be great. What is the standard time for public exhibition? And in terms of the matters that you've just walked us through, are these items matters that you've sought to have included, or were they already there as part of the original agreement? And based on tonight, do you feel that it appropriately covers the concerns that have been raised by submitters?
Thank you, Councillor. Mayor and councillors. Yes, because there's an element of trying to get matters expedited, if you like. The standard exhibition of 4 weeks is suggested, not 6, because it's 4 weeks under the Act. The checks and balances, for want of a better way of putting it, that I've taken you through tonight are included by Yarra Council officers with input from our legal advisors. So they've been added by us as distinct from the original version from DELP. And again, I'm not being critical of DELP at all. It's, again, we needed to start a process. And my judgment is that the terms of reference before you tonight is adequate. I still believe that after hearing submissions tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Are there any further questions from councillors? No, in that case, I seek a way forward, and I believe Councillor O'Brien has a motion to move.
Yes, I've circulated a motion to defer just to give us more time, 2 weeks extra, to consider this this proposal, to have this standing committee.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Councillor.
Yeah, I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wade, do you have a question?
No, I was trying to second it.
All right, okay, no worries. Councillor O'Brien, and just seek some advice. Is it an appropriate time to ask a question to the mover, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, you could do that.
Okay, thank you. Can I just confirm, you said to establish, you're seeking a deferral and to establish a committee to speak about? No, just a deferral to the motion to seek planning scheme amendments through a committee. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor O'Brien?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess although councillors were informed of this alternate approach, and we can all understand the need for this and the pressures that our planning department are under, we only heard about it in, I think, as Bruce mentioned, prior to Christmas, only in passing. We only saw the documents for this 2 weeks ago, and as it was confidential, we were unable to talk with the broader community about that. And then the community's only seen it all a week ago. And I just don't think that via I believe the community only knew about it via the publication of the council meeting agenda. And I just feel that 1 week, or in our case was 2 weeks, to consider such a significant piece of work and that's going to have potentially quite big ramifications is not enough time for us to really be clear on all the ins and outs, as I think tonight has shown. It also does make a mockery of our apparent gold standard approach to public consultation and how much we value that. I mean, a week is not enough time for the community to give us feedback on such a significant matter. I believe that there has been suggestions that this is not critical that we make the decision on this tonight, and I believe that a 2-week deferral of making the decision is appropriate for such a significant matter.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien, for that succinct summary of your motion. Councillor Jolly, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. In seconding the motion, I've spoken to officers, senior officers, and also state government people in relation to this idea. And at the risk of sounding naive, I think it's sort of like the planning minister wants some legacy in possibly his last couple of years as a MP and a minister to get some concrete results through in his municipality, in his seat, which is largely made up, not solely, but largely made up of the city of Yarra. And he points correctly to the fact that the Swan Street structure plan took way, way longer than any of the residents or anybody really wanted to happen. And therefore he wants to fast track things through with this proposal. And that's all well and good. But, you know, the reason for the delay wasn't because of the residents. The reason for the delay was partly because of his department. And I think that if fast tracking means that we don't have full community consultation, I think that's a very, very dangerous precedent. I think that the idea of talking to the community to look at these proposals that are on the table is not going to slow things down, because the residents, more than anyone, want to fast track protection for different parts of the city of Yarra, whether that's south end of Collingwood, whether that's parts of Richmond or wherever it might be. So they're not going to slow it down. So the community involvement will actually get a better result, as we've seen with the experience, for example, of Queen's Parade. But secondly, will actually be the driving force of a speedier result And if the Minister and if the Planning Department genuinely want to fast track things, that's good. But bring the community with us. Don't see the community as the reason why things have slowed down. They're the last people to blame for this. And that's why I think a 2-week deferral so the community can look at this, can get more involved, is actually going to, ironically, fast track the type of results that we all, I think, all of us on the council, officers, councillors, and according to what they're saying, the state government want. And therefore, I'd encourage all councillors to support Councillor O'Brien's excellent alternative recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. Would anyone like to speak against? Councillor Landers?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Look, I do sympathise with what's being discussed here. People want consultation, people want to buy in. I get it. But, you know, you're talking about a situation for 2.5 years, the residents of Bridge Road, Victoria Street and Swan Street didn't get a say. They didn't get a say. There was developments going up around them and they didn't get a say. Now we have the prospect that in 3 months, we're going to go back to the Wild West days of applications going straight to VCAT because there's no controls. It's not fair. Now, Queen's Parade, great result, but it took 4 years. 4 years. And in that time, Bridge Road, Victoria Street, Swan Street had to stand in line and wait. We can't afford that. And yes, I understand their commentaries and I understand they want to be involved. Yes, I get all of that. But we have an urgent situation and we need to address that now, not 2 weeks' time, now. Now, what I'm proposing, what I'm suggesting is we have two parallel situations where we can discuss the broader issues if they want to discuss them, and then we can buy them into the DDOs that have yet to come onto the table. But at the moment, we've got 3 interim DDOs that are due to expire in 3 months or 4 months, and we need to address that now. The whole process needs to get going, and we can't get to the situation where there is no controls in place. The residents of Richmond demand action, and they demand these DDOs. And we have a duty of care. We have a duty of care to get a system in place to deliver that outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Councillor O'Brien, you have a right of reply. Oh, unless, sorry, is there anyone who would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Wade.
Yep, so just leading on basically what Councillor O'Brien said, but to maybe also put a bit of a positive spin on it. I think it's really good that we've got community that care about this, that want to talk to us about this. I personally would really benefit from having the time to carefully appreciate what people are trying to tell us. And I also know that there's a few members of our community locked up in VCAT hearings this week who probably will have something to say. Potentially also some of our Alphington residents who had lots of thoughts on the Amcor development might have something to say on this too. I'm keen to hear all of that. I also have extreme faith in our planning department that if, we do decide to put this through in 2 weeks, possibly with some amendments, I don't know, that they'll be able to get that through. So positivity, everybody's doing well.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Would anyone like to speak against? In that case, I believe that Councillor O'Brien still has the right of reply to Councillor Landers. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just as a right of reply, I'd just like to point out that 2 weeks is not going to make a spot of difference to these DDOs or the interim controls expiring. And in fact, it's probably with better input from the community, it's more likely that things will be moved more quickly with regard to this proposed committee. So I think that it's wrong to say that 2 weeks is going to put the whole, those 3 issues at risk that are currently in the process, in the pipes. So yes, I just think 2 weeks is not going to make any difference to a 2.5 year project. If they're going to be decided at this committee, they'll be decided within the time frame.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, members of the public who submitted tonight. I'm sure we'll see you in a fortnight. We now move to item 12.5, which is the Burnley Golf Course. And the officer presenting is Sally Jones. Councillors, would you like a report from Sally Jones?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Obviously, I'll take the report as read. I will just preface it with the background context. The need to develop options for Burnley has actually been a high priority due to the ongoing risks associated with balls being hit outside the course boundary. We had undertaken some extensive consultation as COVID hit, so we extended it out to 6 weeks, noting that the community consultation report has been attached, and also acknowledging and thanking members of the community, members of Burnley Golf Club and the Burnley Women's Golf Club, and all the Yarra Leisure members for their participation and input into that consultation report as well. So I submit the report obviously as read. With the significant investment likely to be required at Burnley, officers had explored 3 options that we'd like to present to councillors today or tonight. Option 1 is to maintain the status quo, which is not to do anything at the golf course. Officers don't recommend that. Option 2 is to install a high perimeter containment fencing, which addresses the risk and has been quoted at $6 million. And option 3, which is the recommended option that officers are proposing, which is a course redesign that retains a traditional mix of par 3 and par 4 holes, a miniature golf course facilities, and renewal of the short game practice area. And with the option 3, there is the potential to explore external funding for the course redesign, construction of miniature golf, and the renewal of the short game through the Sport and Recreation Victoria's COVID-19 Community Sports Infrastructure Grants. And officers believe it's better value for money as it currently stands. And that's really it from me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Landers, then Councillor Wade.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, it seems to be a very Richmond-orientated meeting today, so I think I go off air next. Have you explored through you, Mayor, have the officers explored any of the opportunities through the Madden Grove level crossing removal program? I believe there's a study underway at the moment, funded through the Australian federal government, as to using sort of opportunities in terms of redemption works or any form of works around that level crossing.
Mayor, I can try and give a response to that if that's okay. Just because that is actually probably more of an infrastructure question than a Burnley Golf Course question in some ways. And just to say that council has been advised only in recent days, actually, or invited by the Level Crossing Removal Authority to meet with them in relation to the proposal to investigate the Burnley, the crossing on Madden Grove. So there is, we'll take the opportunity to meet with them and to explore any opportunities. I have expressed to Councillor Landers separately that we would do that, but I'm not probably hopeful that they would necessarily fund, a fence or a course redesign, but certainly we'd talk to them about getting the best outcome for the Burnley Golf Course and for the broader community in any crossing removal that they undertake in that location.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor?
Yes, I do. One of the other parties in this is, of course, Transurban, and whilst we have a duty of care to stop the golf balls going over the fence, they also have a duty of care to sort of, look after their motorists. Many residents have sort of said to me, why isn't Transurban putting their hands in their pockets? They've done it elsewhere. So why aren't they helping, or why aren't they coming to the party in this process when it comes to I think something like 90 incidents over 13 years. I think something like 500,000 courses, rounds of golf. So why are we putting our hands in our pockets for $6 million for this fence alone? Why isn't Transurban helping out?
Mr. Levers?
Yeah, through the Mayor. Councillor, the question has been raised a few times, and it's been raised publicly with us as well. Council are the manager of the golf course, and as such, we have a duty of care to manage the impacts of that course. I am aware that Transurban and other road authorities have contributed to fencing in other locations. That's generally been a part of an arrangement whereby they've secured land as part of the, from the golf course, and part of the arrangement has been that they would, take some land but fund a fence. So there is potentially an opportunity at the point at which a road is extended to have those sort of negotiations. This road was extended some years ago now, and council at the time didn't make submissions along those lines. Under the acts that we and they need to operate under at the moment, we don't believe there is an obligation on Transurban to fund that fence. We have had a number of discussions with them, and we'll continue to do that. And we would explore with them any opportunities for a contribution or for a partnership or the like. But my advice would be, it's the golf course being managed by council. It is primarily our duty of care. And look, there is some clauses in the Road Management Act that exempt road authorities from putting up fences for potential risks, and that's because if you didn't have that exemption in there, you'd probably have a perimeter fence on every piece of road, and that wouldn't be desirable either.
Thank you, Mr. Levers. Councillor Wade, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's probably an easy question because I think it's clear in the report, but just for the benefit of any community members listening, given this has had attention and it's not super straightforward, am I right in thinking that if this grant application, which will cover 90% of the cost of the restructure proposed, doesn't eventuate, that this matter will come back before council, i.e. we're not making a decision on expenditure other than we're pursuing this grant?
Ostensibly, that's correct, yes.
And I'll follow on to that, which is, and if we're not successful in getting this grant, you'll be happy to answer any more questions, including perhaps confidentially in relation to legal advice we've received and stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Through the Mayor, the intent would be that we would bring back a report with the results of the outcome of the application if council approved us to make that application. So if we were successful, we'd come back with the implications, costs and timelines and the like for proceeding with that option. If we're not successful, we'd come back with options and timeframes, and the options for council without the benefit of that external funding.
Thank you, Mr. Levers.
And I would only just add through you, Madam Mayor, that the grant is only for 90% of the overall costs of any project, but it also is not for any high fencing treatment specifically laid out in the grant applications. The other caveat will be that works need to commence within 6 months and need to be completed within 18 months. So that would be if we got successfully was awarded the grant.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from Councillor Laws? Councillor Crosland.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is in regards to, have officers actually inquired in terms of the grant application process? We've got an option that's been put in front of us where we're looking at a number of factors to be included as part of the partial course redesign, the warm-up short play and mini golf. Is it seen as to whether the success of the grant is contingent on the inclusion of mini golf, or could there be the potential for dual applications where one has mini golf included and one does not? Or does the application have to specifically outline mini golf? I'm just wanting to understand if all the options are available.
So per the report, the grant is by invitation only. So it's the elements of the grant, which included the redesign of the golf course, the renewal of the short course facilities, which are the putting and chipping facilities that we currently already have there, but to renew those, as well as the installation of miniature golf, was applied for back in May of 2020. We have now been re-invited to apply amongst a limited group of people, facilities that were unsuccessful in that first round of grants. Now, our advice from Sport and Recreation Victoria has been that with the miniature golf, it actually achieves the participation and diversity goals that the grant seeks to achieve. Without that, the grant will be absolutely viewed less favourably, and there is not an option for us to put in dual and or competing grants. In some respects, it needs to be the same application that they received back in May 2020. That's what we've been asked to apply for.
Thank you. Thank you for that provision of further clarity there.
Thank you. We have one submission tonight from Kerry Grabau. Kerry, I hope I'm
Sorry,
saying...
Councillor, Mayor, I've got a question.
Certainly. Please go ahead, Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. It's to the relevant officer. $6 million for a fence. How does that work? I mean, have we put out a submission for that? Have we asked for tenders for that? It just seems like a hell of a lot of money.
Correct.
And I was just
correct.
wondering if you could comment on that. And my second and final question, Mayor, through you, Mayor, is if we were to get the money from the state government, what would the 10% equal that we would have to put in dollar terms?
Ms. Jones.
So I'll go to the first question through you, Mayor. It's 725 lineal metres to a height of 30 metres around the entire fence. We've received quotes for that, and it's as of, I think the date I had written down was the February 2020 in the report. So obviously, you know, if it's the option that councillors choose to go with, then a formal tendering and quote process will ensue. But at this stage, these are simply quotes, and we received 2 of those quotes. And in respect to the second question, sorry, just remind me of that again.
If we were to get the state government funding, which is equal to 90%, what would the 10% from us equal in dollar terms?
So currently at the moment, we're looking at putting in an application for $5.2 million. That would be what the grant total would be. We would be expected to put in between 1.5. We're looking at $1 million, which would be for the high fencing treatments, ostensibly the limited high fencing treatments that we'd require.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, if I could just, if you don't mind, I'll just add some context. 1.5 million is obviously not 10% of 5.2 million, no. But as Ms Jones has explained, that we can apply for 90% of the project, but they won't fund the fencing element. So what we've allowed for is funding for 10% of the amount that the SRV would fund us, plus the additional amount required to finish the project, which includes some element of perimeter fencing. Council does have in the current year's budget in the renewals program $1.5 million, which was put in the budget specifically to address the safety issues in this current financial year. Now, because of COVID, we were delayed with the consultation on this matter and a whole range of other things. So we haven't gotten to this point before now, but the 1.5 million is potentially available and could be carried forward to assist to fund the portion required from council if they proceeded with the project.
Thank you, Mr. Levers. Are there any further questions from councillors? No. In that case, I would like to invite Kerry Grabau to address the meeting. Kerry, are you there, and have I got your surname right?
We don't seem to have Kerry with us, Mayor, and I can't vouch for her surname.
That's okay. Well, I believe we have received submissions from Kerry in writing, so thank you for those submissions. I now seek a way forward. Councillors, is there a way forward? Councillor Landers?
Yeah, I tabled a motion with an amendment this afternoon. Is that what you've got on it? Yes, exactly. Essentially, this is basically taking the officer's recommendations on board, but adding an extra bit, in particular that the officers explore all options in parallel with the funding grant. By that I mean talking to bodies like the Level Crossing Authority, etc., and also re-talking back with Transurban to see if they can, I guess, formulate an outcome that will achieve a safe and secure golf precinct in Burnley. Both the ladies' golf club and the men's golf club have said to me that they want more 4 pars than 3 pars. I think at the moment it's 5 or something par 3s and 3 par 4s. They would like the opposite. So I've reflected that in this particular motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landis. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Landis' motion? Councillor Crosland, thank you. Councillor Landis, would you like to speak further to that motion?
Yes, I would. Look, the Burnley Golf Course, it's a real asset. It's very well used. I think something's been in the 13 years that they reported of the 39,000 rounds a year. So in the 13 years that the report mentions the 78 alleged golf ball incidents, that's 507,000 rounds. So it represents 0.015% incident rate. Not that I'm out to ignore that risk, but I think we can look laterally at these issues. I don't think we need to just sort of go down one particular route. And so I'm asking to try and explore every opportunity to protect and enhance a very, very popular and very vital community amenity. And as mentioned, I'm encouraging officers to go and speak to other authorities and to go and talk to Transurban as well. And let's get a great result for Richmond and for Yarra, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Councillor Crosland, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just add further to what Councillor Landis has said. I'm really happy to support this motion. I think it's a really exciting opportunity to see what we can potentially gain from an external funding perspective to really cover the cost of what are some really expensive works to get it down to a point that makes it achievable, without which it's going to be really hard to fund this moving forward. And we want to make sure that we're supporting these significant pieces of infrastructure that are really well enjoyed by our community, particularly older members of our community for whom this is not just sport, this is a really important community in itself. So I would suggest that other councillors get on board and support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Crosland. Would anyone like to speak against this motion? No. Councillor Jolly, your hand is up, but I presume
I've already asked that, sorry, yeah.
Okay, no worries. I'll put the motion to the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you, that is carried.
Can we have a division on that, please?
Certainly. All those in favour? Councillor Landers, Councillor De Vietri, Councillor Crosland, Councillor Wade, Councillor Nguyen, Councillor Mohammed and Councillor Stone. Thank you. I now propose that, given that we still have quite a few items ahead of us, we take a very short break to refresh ourselves, get a drink of water and return in about 3 minutes. Is that acceptable to councillors and council staff? Yep, great. So it's 10:10. I propose 10:13 we return. No worries. Welcome back to the live stream, everyone. We restart this council meeting at item 12.6, which is Recreation and Leisure Services, the SRV grant applications. Councillors, would you like a council officer report on this one? Was that a yes from you, Councillor O'Brien? No? No? Okay, in that case, there are no public submitters, so I seek a way forward. Councillor Nguyen, will you move that motion? Thank you. The councillor's recommendation and a council officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wade, thank you very much. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Nguyen?
No, just to thank the officer, so Sally, and the team for putting this report together for us and driving the grant application process.
Thank you. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with what Deputy Mayor Nguyen said.
Thank you. Anyone speaking against? No. In that case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. We move on to 12.7, and I am going to propose, given the close links between the next two items on the agenda, that we consider them together, and I'll ask the relevant officers to introduce both reports. Is that acceptable to councillors? So I would like to invite, if the councillors would like to hear a report on this, Malcolm McCall. Councillors, would you like to hear from Malcolm? Mr. McCall? Yep, great. Mr. McCall, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. So there's two reports before you tonight seeking endorsement for funding for community grants. There's the Investing in Communities 2021 to 2023 recommendations report. This is a 3-year funding program to community organisations that run program which serve the community in line with our council's funding priorities. An amount of $301,790 was in the budget. The same amount plus CPI has been recommended in the forthcoming 21, 22 and 22, 23 budgets. The program opened in 2020 and attracted 41 applications. I won't repeat this paragraph twice, but I will say that both this grant and the annual grants have a multi-staged assessment process where eligibility and internal assessments are done by officers, and then applications are reviewed by, in the case of the Investing in Community grants, the single panel of external community experts, and in the case of the annual grants, there are several panels for the 6 streams. So this evening, council is asked to endorse the recommendations for $301,200 per annum over 3 years to 11 community organisations for Investing in Community grants 2021 to 2023, and in terms of the annual grants, to endorse 143 applications totaling $939,273. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. Are there questions from councillors? No.
I did. Sorry, I just have 1 second.
while you're seeking that, I'll go to Councillor Stone. Councillor Stone.
Is this questions on either or both, or what are the questions on?
Either or both.
Okay. On the annual grants, I was interested in a proposal at paragraph 20 to offer the applicants under the community strengthening stream a 3-year funding agreement. That makes sense given who they are and how they use the funds and what I know about them. I'm surprised it's kind of popped up as part of the process and wondered why it hadn't been part of the guidelines or recommendations to council when we initiated these grants.
Yes.
Whether it's actually going to be built in, and also whether there are any other categories that fit this, and whether we should formalise this rather than just picking up in the middle of a process.
Yeah. Okay. If you're happy with me to answer that, Mayor, I think that's a very legitimate point, and I would probably suggest we come back and revisit the issues that you've just raised with another report to look at whether or not there are other streams that may benefit from this approach to avoid burden on community groups, and to see where it's most effective and most appropriate. So I would be more than happy to oblige and bring back another report on that with the team.
Thank you. And a follow-up, should that be part of this resolution from councillors? Because I know the acquittal of these is burdensome to some of the groups, the smaller groups and the non-English speaking groups.
I think so. I think
you do that anyway, or should it be part of the resolution? I'm sorry.
I guess it's a point, through you, Mayor, I think it could be an amendment to the resolution to actually seek that a report come back and that officers respond to that report. So I think that would be a good suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wade, did you find your question?
Yes, I just had a question about, in some cases, and I'm looking at examples in the investing in communities bit, but I think it equally applies to the annual grants. Sometimes the recommended or requested amount wasn't given and a lesser amount was chosen, and I was just wondering if there was any specific rationale about the amounts that were chosen, or were they just reflective of the value the panel placed on them?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. In answer to the question, the panel has recommended some minor variances based on the merits of proposals, but overall the recommendations are still well within the overall budgets. I don't have the specific details on hand tonight, but I would be happy to take on notice and provide further information to councillors.
That's enough for me.
Thank you.
I did have a second question, if that's okay though, Mayor.
Please do.
So obviously this process has been run under a system approved by the previous council in about July last year. I was just wondering, for going forward, will a similar kind of scheme be brought before us this year before approving anything for next year? Because I had some kind of overarching comments, but I just think it's far too far down the track for me to be making those at this point.
Okay. Through you, Mayor, the process every year is that we do an initiation report, and then a number of months later we actually go ahead and start it. This year there was a delay because of doing a lot of the COVID grant making, which meant that the initiation report was later than usual. So they normally will actually be due to do an initiation report. It's probably only 3 or 4 months away now into the new financial year. So yes, there is an opportunity at that through those processes to give feedback. So yes, you're right. It is probably a little late now, but it can be done with the next lot of grants. Readily done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCall, for your comments on those items. Are there any additional questions for Mr. McCall? No. In that case, I seek a way forward. Do I have a mover for the council officer's recommendation?
On which one, Mayor? Which one are you?
So can I just seek confirmation from Reece that we are able to move them at the same time, or do we have to move them separately?
You can move them either way. It's council's prerogative.
Okay.
Can I propose they be moved separately, please, because there's an amendment to one and it will get confusing otherwise.
Certainly. So let's initially move item 12.7, which is the investing in community grants. Can I seek a mover for the investing in community grants officer recommendation? Councillor Wade, thank you. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, so it's really exciting to see the diversity of projects that our community's been able to come up with and put forward. I think it's really great that we've got this system where we have this external panel that basically puts stuff up to us. I think we've seen quite a lot in the media recently, examples of governments using grants in a kind of dodgy way, and so it's really great to see that this is done in such a straightforward and transparent way. Obviously the council gives direction, and the previous council did that, as I just asked about, and I'm sure we will in the future as well. Our direction may well be different to the previous councils, but these grants, they look fine, and I accept that we had a great community panel doing the work on it. So thanks for the team for getting all that sorted. It looks like a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stone, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, these grants really are enormously valuable, and you can see that by the quality of the applications. I'm sorry we couldn't fund all of them, but those that have been selected really do offer value and add value to what is already happening in the community. They work in partnerships, they work over a period of time. It's a really good investment of funds in community building and strengthening, and I'm really pleased to see who's being recommended tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Would anyone like to speak against? I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. We'll now address item 12.8, which is the annual grants, a recommendation from the council officers. Can I have a way forward from councillors, please? Councillor Stone, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Do you want to just hear what I'm moving first?
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen.
It's the officer recommendation with an additional clause 2, which is that a further report be provided to council on the proposal to offer the community strengthening stream grant recipients a 3-year funding agreement, and whether there are other groups who would benefit from this arrangement, as well as clear guidelines for when this should be offered.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Nguyen, are you still happy to second that council officer recommendation with the amendment? Great, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Stone?
Yes, it's a very interesting year this year with the disruption from COVID last year, meaning that a lot of the recipients of the previous round were unable to actually spend their money. So that's meant that there's fewer applicants this year. And I hope that made it easier for the panel, because they're usually very hotly contested, particularly the community development stream. But once again, it's great that we're able to spread a lot of money a long way through these grants, and every dollar delivers, I can't remember, is it $3 or $4 worth of value? There's been studies done on the investment that councils provide in community grants. They're highly valued by the community, they are well used, and we get an awful lot in return as a whole city. So thank you to those who have sat on the panels for both of these. Having done it in the past myself, I know it's not a breeze and they're hard decisions to make. Thank you to the officers who have set up an excellent system that supports applicants, and I know many of them take advantage of that. It's a very fair process, and it's just fantastic that we can provide this much support to the community.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Nguyen?
No, that's fine. All good. Thank you.
Any speakers against? I'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Let's move now to the item 12.9, which is the Yarra Arts Advisory Committee membership. Councillors, would you like a council officer report? I would like to hear from Sue Chan, who I believe will be presenting on this item, or Mr. Gosling.
Mayor and councillors, it's Sue Chan here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk through the membership of YARTS. So YARTS membership is for 3 years, so the terms of the previous members were up, and this is the proposal for the new members going forward. YARTS has been going for a long time, since 1997, so there's a long history of our community who bring relevant experience and expertise to give us advice for a long time. And one of the important roles they play is in making recommendations about grants to the council as well. So this is a big part of the job of YARTS. The only change I would make note of is that Sophie Cunningham, who has been recommended in the report, has since withdrawn her nomination, and officers are proposing that Claire Leparati be replacing Sophie on that group. So Claire was already proposed to be on one of the working groups to YARTS, so we're proposing that she replace Sophie Cunningham for YARTS. And finally, I guess I just want to thank the members who have served council for the last 3 years. That's Julia Holt, Jane Lovelock, Helen Marcoux, Chloe Powell, Michael Shorts and Edward Service. They've all given us 3 years of very valuable advice and service. So I just want to thank them and recommend the report to council for endorsement.
Thank you very much for that brief overview. Councillors, are there questions of Ms. Chan? No. In that case, I seek a way forward. Oh, sorry, Councillor Stone.
Just a quick question for me with putting, recommending Claire Leparati into that, the YARTS, does she still remain on the Visual Arts Panel Working Group? Still that recommendation, or?
No, I think the YARTS is the formal committee, and the 2 working groups are, as I understand, appointed by officers. So we'll have a chance to replace Claire on that group if required. There's normally a delegate from YARTS to both the working groups. So, and it's up to Claire whether she wants to nominate to go on that group or not. We feel that at the moment there's sufficient knowledge in the Visual Arts Panel.
Thank you. Any other questions from councillors? No, in that case, I seek a way forward. I'm happy to move this one. I seek a seconder. Councillor Wade, thank you. I will address this item. So thank you firstly all to everyone on the selection panel whose difficult task it was to select these committee members, and I do not envy that task. Congratulations to the proposed members of the Yarra Arts Advisory Committee, the Visual Arts Panel and the Room to Create panel. Your collective experience is very valuable to council, and I want to thank you in advance for your time and commitment. Yarra is a true centre for artistic activity, and we're very lucky to have this wonderful group of practitioners, theorists, makers, creatives to guide and advise council on the issues that face our communities, the giving of grants and other matters within the arts. As one of the council delegates to the committee, I really look forward to some impassioned, enlightening and fruitful conversations with you all. Thanks very much. Councillor Stone, would you, Councillor Wade, sorry, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, that was very well put. Thanks.
Thank you. Any speakers against? No. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Next, we come to 12.10, proposed discontinuance of road abutting to Fitzgibbon Street in Cremorne. Would council officers, sorry, it's that time of night. I call Councillor Wade, Councillor Stone all the time and mix up council officers and councillors. Would councillors like a report from council officers? No, I'm hearing a no. In that case, I will seek a way forward on this item. Do I have someone willing to move the council officers' recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Crosland. Do I have someone to second that motion? Councillor Nguyen, thank you. Councillor Crosland, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Mayor. First off, again, thanks to the officers who have prepared this report and brought it to us tonight. Overall, I don't see any issue why we wouldn't be supporting the officer recommendations. This is the continuation of what was agreed to under the last council, which resolved the discontinuance to sell the land. I see no reason why we would not support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. Sorry, there was a comma between those, full stop actually. Thank you, Councillor Nguyen.
I have nothing else to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak against? No. In that case, I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. When my screen returns back to me, which I'm sorry it has just frozen for a second, I will be able to move us on to the next item unless Deputy Mayor Councillor Nguyen, could you take us to the next item momentarily, please?
Sure. So we have the 2020-21 Annual Plan Progress Report, December. Councillors, are you interested in a report? Yes. Who do we have from the officers? Julie?
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Julie Wyndham is here to present on that.
Yep. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. We've got the December quarterly report for Council to note. Just like to highlight, we've achieved a result of 78% for all the actions that were due to commence. The report highlights a handful of actions that are off track, and also just like to acknowledge all the work across the organisation to continue to deliver on what we committed to in August last year when this was endorsed. So I'll just hand back to you, Mayor, and if other councillors have questions. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Wyndham. Ms. Nguyen, Councillor Nguyen, are you happy for me to take back the item? Thank you. I've found my agenda now, and apologies for that briefly. Councillors, are there questions of Ms. Wyndham? No. In that case, I seek a way forward. Councillor Stone, thank you. Are you moving the motion or are you asking a question?
I have a question. It's about action 1.13, the Reed Street Park in North Fitzroy. It's one of the items that is off track, and the explanation in the report is a little bit light on, and I wondered if it was possible to have any more detail on that, please.
Thank you, Ms. Wyndham. Or Mr. Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor, councillors. Yes, the December milestone was complete community consultation. That hasn't been achieved, regrettably, just with workload of the office. The endeavour is to have concept design to the community in about 4 to 6 weeks, and we'd like to think that we could still get a construction start probably middle of this year, and I think the construction period would be about 6 weeks. I understand we'd be able to use our contractors from the panel, and therefore hopefully we can get the project moving along. Thank you.
So it could be complete this year?
That's my advice today.
Okay,
it's the best
great.
advice I've got. So hopefully by springtime, thereabouts anyway, hopefully it could be finished.
There'll be some grass. Excellent. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Are there any other questions of councillors? No, in that case, I seek a way forward. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Wade, thank you. Councillor Stone, are you happy to second? Yeah, great. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Wade?
No, just to thank Ms Wyndham for preparing this report and the team. It's good to be able to see it all laid out like this. It's very clear.
Thank you. Councillor Stone?
Yes, I think this is the last year of this particular council plan, and it's good to see that nearly everything is complete, and those that are off track aren't very far away, like the Reed Street Park. So we've done really well, and I'd like to acknowledge all the officers being involved in delivering on this plan that the last council agreed to, and of course Ms Wyndham on her regular, comprehensive, much appreciated updates.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against? I'll take it to the vote and ask for all those in favour. Thank you, that's carried. We now move to 12.12, the December 2020 Finance Report, including the mid-year budget review. Councillors, would you like a council officer report on this? Yes, please. David McAlery, I'll ask you to introduce. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and our acting CFO Wei Chen, who known as Chen, will present this report. I think she'll take it as read, so give a brief report and then allow for questions from councillors. So I think Chen's on the line now, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Chen may have accidentally hung up on herself instead of unmuting herself, which is something that we all do.
I can see her there.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chen.
Yeah, my headset wasn't working properly. Thank you, Mayor and Councillor. Yes, so we have the December 2020 Finance Report for Council to note, and I take the report as read. So this report is focused on mid-year budget review, which is the forecast for the current financial year 2021. So as at 31st of December 2020, from our forecast year-end position, Council is anticipating a full-year operating deficit of 12.4 million. So when the 2021 budget was set, we anticipated a deficit of 3.9 million. However, COVID hit us a lot harder than we anticipated. So now we are expecting to collect 6.4 million less in parking fees and 4.5 million less in user fees. And there are some ups and downs relating to grants, employee costs, and material services, which largely offset each other. Also, there's unbudgeted revenue from sale of discontinued roads for 2.9 million. So that takes us to a forecast deficit of 12.4 million. So based on the forecast financial position, Council does not have any potential to fund additional unbudgeted discretionary projects in this financial year 2021. So that's a brief summary. Is there any questions, please?
Thank you, Chen, for that presentation. Councillors, any questions?
Excuse me, Mayor. Apologies for interrupting. I think someone had notified that they were going to do a submission. So forgive me, I don't know the process as to whether that should happen first now or before you do questions.
I hadn't been, but I think it probably should happen first, and then councillors can ask questions regarding both presentations. So thank you for the reminder. We have David Balding listed to submit to this item. David, are you with us?
As it happens, Mayor, he's not with us, so that whole discussion is moot.
Okay.
Sorry, I tried.
But thank you for the reminder, Mr. McAlery. In that case, we'll return to questions from councillors. Councillor Landers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions. I'd like to put a couple of things on the record. We know that the parking income has not really recovered from post-COVID levels, pre-COVID levels. How have you factored that into the budget ongoing in terms of percentage of recoverables?
Through you, Mayor, may I just clarify, Councillor Landers, are you talking about budget for 21-22, or are you asking about the forecast?
For the next 6 months, yeah, okay. For the next 6 months.
Okay, yeah. So we are anticipating a close to budget anticipation level of activity. So at budget time, we already anticipated about 25% lower than normal, and then in our forecast, we anticipated 1.5 million less than budget. So we are not anticipating a full pre-COVID level, but just a little bit less than budget anticipation, but a bit better than current status. So that's sort of the where we are anticipating. Sorry, Dearman, you have something to add?
Just to do the maths on that for Councillor Landers, it's essentially about 70% of pre-COVID levels for the next 5 months is the assumption. Obviously, we were well under that for the few months of the actual main lockdown that we experienced in the second part of 2020. But yeah, it's about 70% is the estimate. The budget is 75, and we took another 1.5 million off, as Chen said. Sorry.
Thank you. And again, for the public record, the cash balance at the start of the year and the cash balance at the end of the year, there will be a difference. Can you just explain how that's made up? I mean, in terms of, like if it's $12.5 million is the expected deficit, how do you make up the $40 million? How does that sort of work?
So our opening cash balance was 95 million, and our anticipated closing cash balance will be 55 million. So the difference is not just operating, because the forecast we're talking about there is operating forecast. And the movement in cash also involves expenditures on capital works projects. So at this moment, we have $38 million of capital works project that is, we expect to be fully spent by end of June. So adding together these two will explain the movement of the cash flow.
And last question for the public record.
Check if Mr. McAlery has an additional point to make on that, because I note his hand is up.
Oh, no, I apologise, Mayor. I should have put my hand down. I'm sorry. No, thank you.
No, that's okay. Councillor Landers.
Yes, of the $56 million that's in the bank, how much is that restricted and how much is that free cash?
So under the $55 million cash closing balance that we are anticipating, we are expecting 53 million as restricted or allocated cash, and then out of that 55 million, 41.2 million will be from borrowing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wade, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's probably a kind of obvious and broad one, but just to quote Councillor Landers, just to kind of get it on the record and or to make it clear for any community members listening either now or to a recording of this, if people have any more questions about this, because obviously it will impact our 2021 budget as well as this media budget, we're in an ongoing process about that, and we can direct any questions to you at a future time, and if we need to make answers to those public, that'll be possible.
Jenny,
I assume it's a yes, but
I'll chime in, Mary, if I may. There'll be a number of opportunities. Well, at any council meeting, councillors can ask about things. We do present to the community publicly our financials quarterly, so there'll be another quarter's worth of results, probably late April, I imagine, where we give how we're tracking this year. And then, of course, the budget process itself involves significant community consultation. We'll go out with a draft budget in April, and that's actually out with the community for a month for comment and feedback. So I think that's probably a long way of saying yes, that there are some inbuilt processes in terms of the way we manage our budget, and also reporting on our financials throughout this year as well, that'll ensure that there's should be no surprises for the community. Let's put it that way.
It's a legislative requirement under Section 223.
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear that just because we weren't raising stuff tonight doesn't mean that we're not asking questions.
Oh, no, absolutely, yes, of course.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from councillors? I'll seek a way forward.
Sorry. So I hope this isn't inappropriate. I just wanted to acknowledge Councillor Landers has asked some questions about the reporting previously in a council meeting, and we are looking to bring in future versions some previous year comparisons, etc., just to keep that. So I just wanted to put that on the record too for Councillor Landers' benefit and for all councillors' benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. You've made Councillor Landers very happy tonight.
I am. Yes, yes.
So I seek a way forward, councillors. I'm happy to move the council officer's recommendation. Is there a seconder among councillors?
I'll second that.
Councillor Landers, thank you. I'd like to first thank Mr McAlery and Chen Wei for preparing this report, for spending time with councillors, helping us understand the reasons and the consequences of this, I'll say it, most unusual budget. I'd like to acknowledge that, like all councils in Victoria, we have sustained significant financial losses as a result of the pandemic, and that last year the council had to make some really difficult but necessary financial choices, and that council chose to support our community. You know, we supported that community to the sum of almost $9 million through community and business support packages. We forwent hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue by waiving fees, offering additional hardship options to ratepayers. We did lose a great deal in leisure fees and in parking revenue during the lockdowns. It's certainly disappointing that, unlike previous mid-year budgets, there is no scope for additional projects. Council officers have been really upfront about that, and we accept that, and I hope the community will also understand and accept that this time round. It's not the best budget to inherit for an ambitious new council, but I did want to mention how proud I am of how Yarra Council responded to community needs during the pandemic. The community grants to promote resilience and recovery. We assisted our frontline health workers. We provided our public housing residents with supplies and with assistance and with community translated essential information during the pandemic and the lockdown. And I'm so proud of that. There will be a lot more to discuss in the coming months and a lot more difficult decisions to make. And to start off with, I feel confident that we're being honest about our financial situation and realistic about what this means. We have a highly engaged community, an ambitious, progressive council, and we will continue to work closely with the community to identify the budget needs and priorities going forward as part of an open and transparent process. Councillor Landers, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'd just like to second those words and say, yes, we are going through very difficult headwinds, but the community should be reassured they've got great councillors, they've got great officers, and everybody's working hard to get through this together. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Would anyone like to speak against? In that case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. We come to 12.13, the Councillor Code of Conduct Review. Would councillors like a presentation from the council officer, Mr. Thomas?
Maybe a quick one?
A very quick one, Mr. Thomas?
I can do that. There's an old saying in policy development, you can do it quickly or you can do it well. You can't do both. Unfortunately, due to a looming deadline in the Local Government Act, we had to do this quickly, hence this hybrid approach. The report this evening presents a code of conduct which has been adjusted to the minimum amount necessary to comply with the provisions of the new Local Government Act, but it also marks the commencement of a review where councillors and officers will build on the best practice across the sector and over the next 6 months build what I hope would be an absolute model code of conduct for the sector. And I'll happy to take any questions.
Thank you. That was indeed brief, and I thank you for it. Questions, councillors? No. I seek a way forward. Can I have a councillor to move the council officer's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Stone. And a seconder? Councillor Nguyen, thank you very much. Councillor Stone, would you like to speak to this recommendation?
Oh, so briefly, I think Mr. Thomas has put forward a very sensible suggestion. We don't have time to do a proper review, although we need to. But we do need a code of conduct, definitely. So adopting one with the minimal changes to meet the Act now is eminently sensible, and the process that he has set out for us to develop and review and develop a new one is also very thorough, and I think anyone would have great confidence in that process, both the community and the councillors. I note there's been some correspondence around we shouldn't be adopting, we should be doing it properly, but the logistics just say we can't do anything other than what's being proposed here. So I'm quite confident in moving this motion tonight, and thank Mr. Thomas for guiding us on a sensible path.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to thank Mr. Thomas for finding a way for us to pivot during these times.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Thank you, councillors. We are coming close to the end of our agenda with item 13.1. It's a notice of a motion that I am seeking to move regarding refugee advocacy. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Mahmood, thank you very much. So this particular council resolution affirms council's commitment as a refugee welcome zone, and it condemns the incarceration of refugees and people seeking asylum. While we experience a 5-day lockdown, I want us to turn our minds to the people who came to Australia seeking safety, who have been locked up by the Commonwealth Government, some for up to 8 years, in Nauru, on Manus Island, on Christmas Island, in Queensland, in Darwin, in Broadmeadows, in Preston, and now right on Yarra's doorstep in Carlton. These people fleeing persecution exercise their right to seek asylum and have been charged with no crime. Their indefinite arbitrary detention is a gross violation of human rights being carried out by our elected leaders. And when such violations are happening, it's everybody's business. And as leaders in our community, we cannot stand by in silence. This motion asks councillors and Yarra Council to recognise and condemn these human rights abuses and to call on the government to immediately release detained refugees and asylum seekers into the community while their visas are being processed and support them to live in freedom and with dignity. It also requests a mandate to seek support from Yarra's neighbouring mayors to amplify the voices calling for a more compassionate approach to those seeking our protection. Councillor Mohammed, would you like to speak to the motion?
You've put it well together, but I think everyone has the right to a second chance and to protect those that want a second chance to the best of our abilities in supporting them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mohammed. Are there any speakers against? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. I now will ask if there is any urgent business under item 14. No. That brings us, with 2 minutes to go before 11 o'clock, might I say I'm extremely proud of how well we've done tonight to get through to this point, to the close of our meeting. Councillors, I would like to wish you a good evening. To our public, stay safe and look after each other, and I declare this meeting closed.